Okay, I don't know if it's actually going out live, so if anyone gets in touch, just say we'll fix it for the next part. Torah portions va'era. As we looked at last time, when you got a verb at the beginning, it means and then the verb is era. It's from the verb ra'a. You know, we say re'eh, if we see, we behold. Well, another way you can conjugate the verb would be, and I became seen, basically. Era would be, I appeared, I became seen. So it's va-era. In the Torah portion, before we even get into it, I want to set some context for the things that we're going to see. So I'm going to talk about the way that Yehovah interacts with reality, the way he guides us, the way that he influences our life and the influence of the life of the Gentiles, the influence of the life of rulers and all of those things, because the scripture's got actually quite a lot to say about it. So in the first part, I'm going to look at it from the perspective of how Yehovah interacts with rulers. And the second part, I'm going to look at how he interacts with us, what it is when we make plans, for example. When we make plans, how does that work with Yehovah? How does he guide us in those things? Also, as a part of that, I'm going to deal with something that I've had a number of questions about, maybe like 10, 12 questions about illness. Well, what is it for us to become ill? Why do we become ill? And what are the various things that would lead us to be ill? Is it right if we're ill? Are we being punished if we're ill? What's the case there? So in the first part, rulers, and also I'm going to look at when we're physically in danger, Yehovah protecting us when we're physically in danger, how that works according to the scriptures as well. And then in the third part, we're going to go through the Torah portion. It's a really short Torah portion. It's just basically, okay, go and speak to Pharaoh, bring all of these plagues against him. And we've looked at it a number of times from a number of different angles. So what I want to do is establish what's actually going on in the background according to the scriptures. So we're going to be dealing with this guy. We're going to be dealing with his hardness of heart. Exodus 9:16 says, "And for this reason I have raised you up in order to show you my power and in order to declare my name in all the earth." So there's two things that Yehovah is achieving when he guides events on the earth, when he has an influence over events on the earth. The first one is his name. That's the primary thing. It's all about his name. The second one is for us, for our good. Romans 8:28, we know that all matters work together for good to those who love Elohim, to those who are called according to his purpose. So they're the two things, and we're going to see them in all the scenarios that we look at. He does it for the sake of his name, and he does it for the sake of us. Proverbs 21 verse 1 says, the king's heart, okay, Pharaoh's heart, he's described as the king of Egypt in scripture. The king's heart is as channels of water in the hand of Yehovah. He inclines it wherever he wishes. Okay? So he can incline the king's heart to whatever he wants. Now, as we've seen before, he doesn't just do this arbitrarily. Okay? He hardens people who are of a hard heart, for example. You never see him change somebody's heart from being good to being bad. You will sometimes see him change a bad person's heart to do good to good people, but you'll never see him change a good person's heart to be bad. In Ezra 6:21-22, it says, and the children of Israel who had returned from the exile ate together with all who had separated themselves from the uncleanness of the Gentiles of the land in order to seek Yehovah Elohim of Israel. And they performed the festival of unleavened bread 7 days with joy, for Yehovah caused them to rejoice, and he turned the heart of the king of Ashur, the king of Assyria, toward them to strengthen their hands in the work of the house of Elohim, the Elohim of Israel. He inclined his heart towards them so that he helped them build the temple, basically. 1 Kings 11:4-14. It says, and it came to be, when Shlomo was old, that his wives turned his heart away after other gods, and his heart was not perfect with Yehovah his Elohim, as was the heart of his father David. So it doesn't take away from free will at all. Okay, Yehovah will turn somebody's heart. Some circumstances he uses events in the person's life to turn their heart away. Like this, you could phrase this as Yehovah turned Solomon's heart away. But he didn't really turn Solomon's heart away. He just knew that it was going to happen through the play out of time. It was his free will. He knew from the beginning that Solomon's heart would be turned away by his wives. And Shlomo went after Ashtoreth, the god of the Sidonians, and after Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites. Thus Shlomo did evil in the eyes of Yehovah, did not follow Yehovah completely like his father David. Then Shlomo built a high place for Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, on the hill that is east of Jerusalem, and for Moloch, the abomination of the children of Ammon. And so he did for all his foreign wives who burned incense and sacrificed to their gods. Therefore Yehovah was enraged with Shlomo, because his heart had turned away from Yehovah Elohim of Yisrael, who had appeared to him twice. Okay, so we don't have Yehovah appearing to us, but people kind of, I don't know, they take heart in the fact that Shlomo has, or they take heart in the fact that Yehovah has really influenced their lives, that he's been a big part of their lives. And so they think, well, he's such a big part of my life. Obviously, you know, if I mess up here and there, it doesn't matter, because I know that I'm so close with Yehovah. He's so near to me. Well, Shlomo had him appear to him twice, and he'd given him all of this wisdom, he'd given him all of this wealth and all this standing in the world. He'd favored him above any man that was on the earth at this time. And yet he still turned away. So we can take a lesson from that. It doesn't matter how much we see Yehovah involved in our life. That's no guarantee of anything. He's no respecter of persons. In fact, the more that we see him involved in our lives, the more responsibility we have to do the things he says to do for us. For us to do for him. And had commanded him concerning this word, not to go after other gods. But he did not guard what Yehovah had commanded. And Yehovah said to Shlomo, because you've done this and have not guarded my covenant and my laws which I have commanded you, I shall certainly tear the kingdom away from you and give it to your servant. Only I do not do it in your days for the sake of your father David. Out of the hand of your son I shall tear it. Only I shall not tear away all the kingdom, but give one tribe to your son for the sake of my servant David, and for the sake of Jerusalem, which I have chosen. And Yehovah raised up an adversary against Shlomo, Hadad the Edomite. He was of the seed of the king in Edom. So we see Yehovah raising up these enemies against the king of Israel. And it's interesting the way that we see him doing it. Later in that passage, it says, and Elohim raised up another adversary against him, Rezon, son of Eliada, who had fled from his master, Hadadezer, king of Zophah, and gathered men to him and became commander over a raiding band when David slew those of Zophah. And they went to Damascus and dwelt there and reigned in Damascus. And he was an adversary of Yisrael all the days of Shlomo, besides the trouble that Hadad caused. And he was hostile to Yisrael and reigned over Aram. And a servant of Shlomo, Jeroboam, son of Nevat, an Ephraimite from Zeredah, whose mother's name was Zeruah, a widow, also lifted up a hand against the king. And this is what caused him to lift up a hand against the king. Shlomo had built Millo, repairing the breaks in the city of David, his father. So what actually caused this guy to come against him? Yes, Yehovah ultimately caused him to come against Shlomo, but what caused him was Solomon's own actions. So Yehovah weaves all of these things together, all of these events. He knew that Shlomo's heart was going to be turned from him. And then he knew that Shlomo was going to do something to turn this other guy against them as well. And Daniel 2:21 says, He changes the times and the seasons. This isn't talking about the little horn power, which we see in Daniel 7, when it says he changes the times and seasons. This is talking about Yehovah himself. It says he changes the times and the seasons. He removes kings and he raises up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who possess understanding. And the book of Daniel is a great text for us to see how he interacts with rulers, the way that he influences rulers. So I'm going to read from the end of Daniel 3 to the end of Daniel 6. And we're going to see 3 different kings and how Yehovah interacts with them all. We read through in Torah portion Noach, the fiery furnace, when Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were cast into the fiery furnace. And they said, our Elohim is able to save us from this. But even if he doesn't, we're not going to break his word. So after this, to these events, it says, Nebuchadnezzar responded and said, blessed be the Allah of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who sent his messenger and delivered his servants who trusted in him, and changed the king's order and gave up their bodies that they should not serve nor do obeisance to any Allah except their own Allah. So what we see here is one of the things that he does when he establishes his name, or he glorifies his name through his interactions. And indeed, this is how Nebuchadnezzar begins to recognize him. It says, therefore, I make a decree that whoever of any people, nation, or language who speaks any wrong against the Allah of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, his limbs shall be taken and his house made a dunghill, because there is no other Allah who is able to deliver like this. So he's establishing who he is in the king's eyes, just like we saw him say to Pharaoh, okay, I'm going to do this in you. I've raised you up in order to establish my power. Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babel. So 2 things that he does. He glorifies his name, and all matters work for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose. Nebuchadnezzar the king, to all peoples, nations, and languages that dwell in the earth, peace be increased to you. I thought it good to declare the signs and wonders which the Most High Allah has worked for me. Okay, so again, he's establishing his name. How great are his signs and how mighty his wonders. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and his rulership is from generation to generation. I, Nebuchadnezzar, was at rest in my house and prospering in my palace. I saw a dream and it frightened me, and the thoughts of my bed and the visions of my head alarmed me. So I issued a decree to bring in all the wise ones of Babel before me, to make known to me the interpretation of the dream. So the magicians, the astrologers, the Chaldeans, and the diviners came in, and I related the dream to them, but its interpretation they did not make known to me. And at last, Daniel, whose name is Belteshazzar, according to the name of my ale, okay, his ale, Baal, came before me. In him is the spirit of the set-apart Allah. So I related the dream to him, saying, now it's interesting what he's just said. He said, I've called him after the name of my ale, okay, Baal. But he says, in him is the spirit of the set-apart Allah, he who is set apart from the world. Belteshazzar, chief of the magicians, because I know that the spirit of the set-apart Allah is in you, and no secret is too difficult for you. Explain to me the visions of the dream that I've seen and its interpretation. Okay, so Daniel, as we'll see later on as well, is well known. Okay, obviously he is a righteous guy. He lives by the law. He lives by the scriptures. The king recognizes him as somebody who is a good guy, basically, somebody who is capable. Now the visions on my bed, of my head on my bed were these. I looked and saw a tree in the midst of the earth, and its height great. Okay, so this is one of those symbolic dreams that we were talking about. It's another example of a symbolic dream. The tree became great and strong, and its height reached to the heavens, and it was visible to the ends of all the earth. Its leaves were lovely, and its fruit plenty, and in it was food for all. The beasts of the field found shade under it, and the birds of the heavens dwelt in its branches, and all flesh was fed from it. In the visions of my head on my bed, I looked and saw a watcher, even a set-apart one, coming down from the heavens. He cried aloud and said this, "Hew down the tree and cut off its branches, strip off its leaves and scatter its fruit. Let the beasts flee from under it and the birds from under its branches. But leave the stump of its roots in the earth, even with a band of iron and bronze in the tender grass of the field, and let it be wet with the dew of the heavens, and let his portion be with the beasts on the grass of the earth. Let his heart be changed from a man's, let him be given the heart of a beast, and 7 times pass over him." Okay, so this is interesting because it makes a distinction between what goes on in a man's heart and what goes on in an animal's heart when we consider things like Balaam's donkey that began to speak and was able to give speech to its thoughts. That had the heart of a beast, and it was speaking from the heart of a beast. The heart of a man, heart of a beast. It talks later about his understanding was changed. We hear about Solomon being given a wise and understanding heart. We know the conscience and the thoughts and the intentions all reside in the heart. It says, "And let 7 times pass over him." Now, the usual sort of understanding as to what a time is it's a year. But I don't think so. I don't agree personally. This word comes from a word that is actually related to a word that means menstruation. So I think it's probably more something to do with the cycle of the moon. That's my guess, it's my opinion. It's not founded on anything solid, but that's just where I'm coming from with it. I don't think that these events happened over 7 years. This matter is by the decree of the watchers and the command by the word of the set-apart ones, so that the living know that the Most High is ruler in the kingdom of men and gives it to whomever he wishes and sets over it the lowest of men. Okay? So this is something that's repeated throughout all of the narrative. The reason that this is happening to the king is so that the living know, so that we know that the Most High, Yehovah, is ruler in the kingdom of men right now. Gives it to whomever he wishes, and he sets over it the lowest of men. So when we look around and we look at our rulers and we think these people aren't up to much, okay, we need to know that it is Yehovah who has established them in their positions, and he's done it for his purposes. "This dream have I seen, I, King Nebuchadnezzar, and you, Belteshazzar, reveal its interpretation, since all the wise ones of my kingdom are unable to make known to me the interpretation. But you are able, for the spirit of the set-apart Elah is in you." And we'll see that they talk about Daniel later on in terms of him having light. Basically, he's a light to these people. This is how we need to be to people around us. They should recognize in us that we are capable people, but we're able because we've got this set-apart spirit of Elohim. We're different from people. Then Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, was stunned for a short time, and his thoughts alarmed him. The king responded and said, "Belteshazzar, do not let the dream or its interpretation alarm you." Belteshazzar answered and said, "My master, the dream is to those who hate you, and its interpretation to your enemies. The tree you saw, which became great and strong, whose height reached to the heavens and was visible to all the earth, whose leaves were lovely and its fruit plenty, and in it was food for all, under which the beasts of the field dwelt, and on whose branches the birds of the heavens sat. It is you, O king. For you have become great and strong, and your greatness has grown and has reached to the heavens, and your rulership to the end of the earth." Now, Nebuchadnezzar doesn't strike me as a particularly great guy. It talks about him later executing those who he wants to, and not a good guy. Yet, by the power of Yehovah, his power was extended to the entire earth because it was Yehovah's will that this be done. And as the king saw a watcher, even a set-apart one, coming down from the heavens, and he said, "Hew down the tree and destroy it, but leave the stump of its roots in the earth, even with the band of iron and bronze in the tender grass of the field, and let it be wet with the dew of the heavens, and let his portion be with the beasts of the field, till 7 times pass over him. And this is the interpretation, O king, and this is the decree of the Most High, which has come upon my master the king. that you are going to be driven away from men, and your dwelling be with the beasts of the field, and you be given grass to eat like oxen, and you be wetted with the dew of the heavens, and 7 times pass over you, till you know that the Most High is ruler in the kingdom of men, and he gives it to whomever he wishes. And they that gave the command to leave the stump of its roots of the tree, your kingdom remained yours, from the time you come to know that the heavens are ruling. Therefore, O king, let my counsel be acceptable to you, and break off your sins by righteousness, and your crookedness by showing favor to the poor. Your prosperity might be extended. So you've got a chance now. Okay, break off your sins, telling us he's not a good guy. Show favor to the poor. Again, you've got a chance. Change yourself. Your prosperity might be extended. All this came upon King Nebuchadnezzar. At the end of the 12 months, he was walking about the palace of the kingdom of Babel. The king spoke and said, "Is not this great Babel which I built for the house of my kingdom by the might of my power and for the esteem of my splendor?" So he gets a bit big for his boots. The word was still in the king's mouth when a voice fell from the heavens. "King Nebuchadnezzar, to you it is spoken, the kingdom has been taken away from you." And I'm sure that all of the rulers of the earth don't ascribe their kingdom to YHVH. They probably all think, "Look at this great thing that I've done by the might of my power." They're just as unaware that it's YHVH behind them as Nebuchadnezzar. And you are driven away from men, and your dwelling is to be with the beasts of the field. You are given grass to eat like oxen, and 7 times shall pass over you, until you know that the Most High is ruler in the kingdom of men, and gives it to whomever he wishes. In that hour the word was executed on Nebuchadnezzar, and he was driven from men, and he ate grass like oxen, and his body was wet with the dew of the heavens, till his hair had grown like eagle's feathers, and his nails like bird's claws. And at the end of the days, I, Nebuchadnezzar, lifted up my eyes to the heavens, and my understanding returned to me. And I blessed the Most High and praised and made him great who lives forever, whose rule is an everlasting rule, and his kingdom is from generation to generation. And all the inhabitants of the earth are of no account. And he does as he wishes with the host of the heavens and among the inhabitants of the earth. And there is none to strike against his hand or say to him, "What have you done?" Okay, so we've looked before at the idea that we shouldn't be ascribing power to Hasatan and saying, "It's Satan. Satan's doing all these things. He's putting everyone in position to power, and, you know, it's going to be terrible for us." We're going to see as we go through that these people try their best to go against YHVH. They try their best to go against his Messiah. They make decrees to try and afflict the righteous. But we'll see how YHVH responds. At the same time, my understanding returned to me, and for the preciousness of my kingdom, my esteem and splendor were returning to me. My counselors and nobles sought me out, and I was reestablished in my kingdom, and excellent greatness was added to me. So at exactly the time that YHVH said, all these people come and seek him out, and his kingdom was given back to him. It was reestablished, and excellent greatness was added to him. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, am praising and exalting and esteeming the King of the heavens, but all his works are truth and his ways right. And those who walk in pride, he is able to humble. So again, what we've got him doing here, he's exalting his name. Belshazzar, different to Daniel. Daniel is Belteshazzar. This is a king. His name is Belshazzar. Belshazzar, the king, made a great feast for 1,000 of his great men, and drank wine in the presence of the 1,000. While tasting the wine, Belshazzar gave orders to bring the gold and silver vessels which his father Nebuchadnezzar had taken from the temple. Okay, so his father was this previous king that we heard about, and he says, "Go and get all of the stuff from the temple, all of the vessels of gold and silver, which had been in Jerusalem, that the king and his great men, his wives and concubines, could drink from them." Then they brought the gold vessels that had been taken out of the temple of the house of Allah, which had been in Jerusalem, and the king and his great men, his wives and his concubines, drank out of them. They drank wine and praised the Elohim of gold and of silver, of bronze, of iron, of wood and stone. Okay, so they counted him as nothing, basically. This is an act of the rulers of the earth to mock Elohim, or to show their great power. Go and get all the things out of the temple of YHVH, bring them to us so that we can drink wine. At that moment, the fingers of a man's hand appeared and wrote opposite the lampstand on the plaster of the wall of the king's palace. And the king saw the part of the hand that wrote. Then the king's color changed and his thoughts alarmed him, so that the joints of his hips were loosened and his knees knocked against each other. The king called loudly to bring in the astrologers, the Chaldeans and the diviners. The king spoke and said to the wise ones of Babel, "Whoever reads this writing and shows me its interpretation is robed in purple and has a chain of gold around his neck and shall be third ruler in the kingdom." So all the king's wise ones came, but they were unable to read the writing or make known its interpretation to the king. Then King Belshazzar was greatly alarmed, and his color changed, and his great men were puzzled. The queen, because of the words of the king and his great men, came to the banquet hall, and the king spoke and said, "O king, live forever. Do not let your thoughts alarm you, nor let your color change. There is a man in your kingdom in whom is the spirit of the set-apart Allah. And in the days of your father, light and understanding and wisdom, like the wisdom of the Elohim, were found in him. And King Nebuchadnezzar, your father the king, made him the chief of magicians, astrologers, Chaldeans, and diviners." So Daniel is known. Okay, Daniel, I imagine, was just going about his life, doing the things that Daniel does. But because of who he was known in the kingdom. Because an excellent spirit, knowledge and understanding, interpreting dreams and explaining riddles, solving difficult problems were found in this Daniel, whom the king named Belteshazzar. Now let Daniel be called, and let him show the interpretation. So Daniel was brought in before the king. The king spoke and said to Daniel, "Are you that Daniel who is one of the sons of the exile from Yehudah, whom my father the king brought from Yehudah? I have heard of you that the spirit of Allah is in you, and that light and understanding and excellent wisdom are found in you. And the wise ones, the astrologers, have been brought in before me, that they should read this writing and make known to me its interpretation, but they were unable to show the interpretation of the word. And I myself have heard of you, that you are able to give interpretations and solve difficult problems. Now, if you are able to read the writing and make known its interpretation to me, you are to be robed in purple and have a chain of gold around your neck, and shall be third ruler in the kingdom." Then Daniel answered and said before the king, "Let your gifts be for yourself, and give your rewards to another. Yet I shall read the writing to the king and make known the interpretation to him. O king, the most high Allah, Nebuchadnezzar, your father, a kingdom and greatness, and gave your father a kingdom, greatness and preciousness and esteem. And because of the greatness which he gave him, all peoples, nations, and languages trembled and feared before him. Whomever he wished, he executed, and whomever he wished, he kept alive, and whomever he wished, he raised up, and whomever he wished, he made low. But when his heart was lifted up, and his spirit was strong so as to act proudly, he was put down from his kingly throne, and they took his preciousness from him. Then he was driven from the sons of men, and his heart was made like the beasts, and his dwelling was with the wild donkeys. He was given grass to eat like oxen, and his body wet with the dew of the heavens, till he knew that the Most High Allah is ruler in the kingdom of men, and sets up over it whomever he wishes. And you, his son, Belshazzar, have not humbled your heart, although you knew all of this. And you've lifted up yourself against the master of the heavens, and they brought before you the vessels of his house, and you and your great men, your wives and your concubines have been drinking wine from them. And you have praised the Elohim of silver and of gold, of bronze, of iron, of wood and stone, which neither see, nor hear, nor know. But the Allah who holds your breath in his hand and owns all of your ways, you have not made great. Then the part of the hand was sent from him, and this writing was inscribed. And this is the writing that was inscribed, Mene, Mene, Tekel, Upharsin. And this is the interpretation of each word. Mene, Allah has numbered your kingdom and put an end to it. And that's repeated twice. Tekel, you have been weighed on the scales and found lacking. And Perez, your kingdom has been divided and given to the Medes and the Persians. Perez is a verb in Aramaic. It means to divide in two. Upharsin is the same word. It's just like the modified form of this verb. Then Belshazzar gave orders, and they robed Daniel in purple and put a chain of gold around his neck, and they proclaimed concerning him that he is the third ruler of the kingdom. So he makes his name known to the king again, and then he does good for Daniel. In that night, Belshazzar, king of the Chaldeans, was slain, and Darius the Mede, took over the kingdom, being about 62 years old. It pleased Darius to appoint over the kingdom 120 viceroys to be over all the kingdom, and over them 3 governors, of whom Daniel was one, so that these viceroys should give account to them, and the king suffer no loss. Then this Daniel distinguished himself above the governors and viceroys because an excellent spirit was in him. So again, because of who he was, because he was walking in Yehovah's ways, he distinguishes himself. And when he does this, when he walks in his ways, he doesn't turn to the left or to the right. Yehovah can work in that situation. The king planned to appoint him over all the kingdom. And the governors and viceroys sought to find occasion against Daniel concerning the kingdom, but they were unable to find occasion or corruption, because he was steadfast and no negligence or corruption was found in him. Then these men said, "We shall not find any occasion against Daniel unless we find it against him concerning the law of his Allah." Okay, so these people, these other powerful people, wanted to find a problem with Daniel, but because he did everything right, they couldn't find a problem with him. So what they're going to have to do is engineer a situation by which a problem is found with him. They create a new law. It says, "Then these governors and viceroys tumultuously gathered before the king and said to him, 'King Darius, live forever. All the governors of the kingdom, the nobles and viceroys, the counselors and advisors have consulted together to establish a royal decree and to make a strong interdict that whoever petitions any Allah or man for 30 days except you, O king, is thrown into the den of lions. Now, O king, establish the interdict and sign the writing so that it is not to be changed, according to the law of the Medes and Persians, which does not pass away.' So King Darius signed the written interdict. And Daniel, when he knew that the writing was signed, went home, and in his upper room with his windows open toward Jerusalem, he knelt down on his knees there 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks before his Allah as it had been done before." So it makes a point of saying he knew that this had been signed into law. He knew that the law said, if you pray to God, then you're going to be thrown into a den of lions. There will come times in the future, I'm sure, when laws are passed to say that we cannot do the things that Yehovah tells us to do. And perhaps even there will be on pain of death. But we can take a lesson from the way that Daniel is and what happens to Daniel, how Yehovah treats him. You would think, normally, I can't do this. If I do this, I'm going to be killed. But it actually turns out to be Daniel's obedience which saves him. Then these men tumultuously gathered and found Daniel praying and entreating before his Allah. Then they approached the king and spoke concerning the king's interdict. "Have you not signed an interdict that every man who petitions any Allah or man within 30 days except you, O king, is thrown into the den of lions?" The king answered and said, "The word is certain according to the law of the Medes and Persians, which does not pass away." Then they answered and said before the king, "Daniel, who is one of the sons of the exile from Yehudah, pays no heed to you, O king, nor for the interdict which you have signed, but makes his petition 3 times a day." Then the king, when he heard these words, was greatly displeased with himself and set his heart on Daniel to deliver him, and he labored till the going down of the sun to deliver him. Because obviously Daniel's got favor in the eyes of the king. But this law has been passed, which even the king himself cannot change. He can't stop this from happening. Then these men tumultuously gathered before the king and said to the king, "Know, O king, that this is the law of the Medes and Persians, that any interdict or decree which the king establishes is not to be changed." Then the king gave orders, and they brought Daniel and threw him into the den of lions. But the king spoke and said to Daniel, "Your Allah, whom you serve continually, he himself delivers you." So this is quite a remarkable thing for a pagan king to be saying. He's seen Daniel. He knows what Daniel's about. The king has faith that his Allah is going to save him. It says, "A stone was brought and laid on the mouth of the den, and the king sealed it with his own signet and with the signets of his great men, and that the situation of Daniel might not be changed. The king went to his palace and spent the night fasting. No entertainment was brought before him, and his sleep fled from him. So this is quite a thing as well for the king to be fasting, presumably on Daniel's behalf. Then the king rose up very early in the morning and hurried to the den of lions. And when he came to the den, he called with a grieved voice to Daniel. The king spoke and said to Daniel, Daniel, servant of the living Allah, has your Allah, whom you serve continually, been able to deliver you from the lions? Okay, now we've got a chance for YHVH's name to be exalted. Yes, for good to be done to Daniel, but for his name to be exalted. Then Daniel said to the king, O king, live forever. Now it's remarkable when you see Daniel talking to all of these kings. These are not good men, and yet he's respectful to them. He's kind and he's respectful to them, exactly the way that we're to be. My Allah has sent his messenger and has shut the lions' mouths, and they did not harm me because I was found innocent before him. Okay, so again, he testifies of the name of YHVH, that because he was found innocent before him, the lions didn't harm him. And also before you, O king, I have done no harm. Then the king was very glad and gave orders that Daniel be taken up out of the den. And Daniel was taken up out of the den. No harm was found on him because he trusted in his Allah. And the king gave orders, and they brought those men who had accused Daniel, and they threw them, their children, their wives into the den of lions. And the lions overpowered them and broke all their bones in pieces before they reached the floor of the den. So you've got these people in positions of power, and they're trying to do harm to YHVH's people. But what ends up happening to them in the end? Then King YHVH wrote to all peoples, nations, and languages that dwell in all the earth, peace be increased to you. From before me is made a decree that throughout every rule of my kingdom, men are to tremble and fear before the Allah of Daniel, for he is the living Allah and steadfast forever, and his kingdom is one which is not destroyed, and his rule is unto the end. He delivers and rescues, and he works signs and wonders in the heavens and on earth, for he has delivered Daniel from the power of the lions. And this Daniel prospered in the kingdom of YHVH and in the kingdom of Koresh the Persian. That's Cyrus the Persian. So what we've got, YHVH's name being exalted, and all matters working together for good, for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose. In Psalm 2, it says, why do the Gentiles rage and the people meditate emptiness? The kings of the earth take their stand, and the rulers take counsel together against YHVH and against his Messiah. Okay, so don't expect the rulers of the earth to be on YHVH's side just because he's put them in the positions of power that he has. They take counsel against him. They're against him. Verse 3 says, let us tear apart their bonds and throw away their ropes from us. They don't want the bondage, as they see it, of YHVH, or the bondage of his Messiah. They want to cast away these bonds and be free and establish these things and make themselves great in their own power. He who is sitting in the heavens laughs. YHVH mocks at them. This is what we've got to remember when we look at all of these things that are going on in the earth. YHVH is just laughing at them like, yeah, okay. Then he speaks to them in his wrath, and he troubles them in his rage, saying, but I've set my king on Zion, my set-apart mountain. I inscribe for a law. YHVH said to me, you are my son. Today I have brought you forth. Ask of me, and I make the Gentiles your inheritance, and the ends of the earth your possession. Break them with a rod of iron, dash them to pieces like a potter's vessel. And now be wise, O kings. Be instructed, you rulers of the earth. I don't think they're going to listen, but this is what YHVH's advice to them is. Serve YHVH with fear and rejoice with trembling. Kiss the Son, lest he be enraged and you perish in the way, for soon his wrath is to be kindled. Blessed are all those taking refuge in him. John 10:36-42 says, do you say of him whom the Father set apart and sent into the world, you are blaspheming because I said, I am the Son of Elohim? If I do not do the works of my Father, do not believe me. But if I do, though you do not believe me, believe the works, so that you know and believe that the Father is in me and I in him. Therefore they were seeking again to seize him, but he went forth out of their hand Okay, this is something that we need to bear in mind when we're looking at these things. Okay, so what about immediate threats of physical danger to us? And there's a whole host of different outcomes with this that we're going to look at. But these people were seeking to seize Yeshua, but he went forth out of their hand and went once more to the other side of the Ardain, to the place where Yochanan was immersing at first, and he stayed there. And many came to him and said, Yochanan indeed did no sign, yet all that Yochanan said about this man was true. And it says, and many believed on him there. So Yehovah wanted him to go on and fulfill his purpose and to make his name great in the earth. So what happened? All of these men came against him with all of their cleverness, with all of their force to come and seize him, and he just went forth out of their hand. If it's Yehovah's will that happens, it's Yehovah's will. So Luke 4 says, and he said to them, no doubt you shall say this proverb to me, physician, heal yourself. Whatever we have heard being done in Capharnaum, also do here in your country. And he said, truly I say to you, no prophet is accepted in his own country. But truly I say to you, many widows were in Israel in the days of Eliyahu, when the heaven was shut up for 3 years and 6 months, and there was great scarcity of food in all the land. And Eliyahu was sent to none of them, but to Zarephath of Sidon, to a woman, a widow. And many lepers were in Israel in the time of Elisha the prophet, and none of them were cleansed except Naaman the Aramean. So basically, he's saying, look, none of them were worthy of this attention, and you're not worthy of it too, so obviously they're not pleased. And those in the congregation, when they heard this, were filled with wrath. And rising up, they drove him out of the city and brought him to the brow of the hill on which the city was built in order to throw him down. So you've got this big rabble. They take hold of Yeshua and they take him up to the top of the hill to cast him off and kill him. But he, passing through the midst of them, went away. If it's Yehovah's will, then no one can come against us. We've got to remember this in these situations. If it's Yehovah's will, then we will be fine. And he promises such protection. Now I want to read through the story of Jeremiah in Jeremiah 37 and 38, because we see Jeremiah being remarkably protected, and the way that he's protected is amazing. But first, I want to relate the story of what happened to the Dudeks this week. I'm sure that most people here are familiar with this. For anybody who's online, the Dudeks are an American family who came over, and Yah had led them to come over and to live here. They can live in Britain for 6 months. According to the law, they can live in Britain for 6 months. Then, unless they have a visa, they must leave the country for 6 months, and then they can re-enter. So at Sukkot this year, there was a guy called Gary who came along. Gary lives in Ireland, and Ireland's one of the places, the nearest place, in fact, that they could go to, and then re-enter after 6 months. So they've gone to live with Gary, and they were there for 3 months in Ireland. After that 3 months, they would have to leave Ireland unless they can get another stamp on their passport to say that they can stay in Ireland again. So the relevant part of the story starts when Mel went over. Mel went over to Ireland to stay with them. And when they went to meet Mel, they had an encounter with 2 immigration agents. There's a woman and there was a man. And the man's name was William. And William will be relevant as we go on. The woman took great offense to what they told to her, and said that they were abusing the system and this, that, and the other. Now, as they've spoken to various immigration people, they've had different stories from the different immigration people that they've spoken to. But this woman came and was against them. What Jeff did is he acted very kindly towards her, and he said to her, I submit to your authority. And by all accounts, I wasn't there, but by all accounts, Jeff said she melted when he said this. And just this act of doing what Yehovah says to do in his word had these good effects. And then when she spoke to them, she told them all the things that they needed to know in order for the rest of what's going to transpire. So Mel stayed there, she came back home, and it came to Jeff's mind that they still had 1 day of those 6 months left that they could come into the country. So he was praying about whether or not he should do this. Should we go there for a day? And he said that at the exact time, like literally the exact second that he was praying, at the end of the Torah portion a couple of weeks ago, I said, at the time of their visitation. And he said the way that I said it and the way that they went back and looked at it, it was like weird. It was disjointed from the rest, and it was just like a separate statement. So this was at the exact time he was praying, so he took it as confirmation. They came over to Britain, and their plan was, when they went back into Ireland, that they would get their passports stamped, and then they'd be allowed to stay in Ireland for another 3 months. So when they came in at the port, they tried to encounter a customs agent at the port. They spoke to the security there. He went on the phone. No customs agent there. What you're going to have to do is go to the local Garda station. And for people online, Garda are the police in Ireland. You're going to have to go to the local Garda station, speak to the immigration officer there. Went to the Garda station. There was no immigration officer there. They were told what you'll have to do is you'll have to go to your county Garda station, speak to the county Garda. So they go back to Wexford, go to the county Garda station. Jeff speaks to the person there. No immigration officer here, give us your name, we'll get them to call you back. Jeff sees them writing his name in the logbook. He goes away, a couple of days later he comes back and he says, I've not had a phone call. They check the logbook that they've got there, names aren't there. He said, but I saw them write my name in the book. So they went and got another logbook, a smaller one. They're checking through that, and they find their name in there, but it's been crossed out. Like they were going through the book, crossing out the people that had been called, so they've been crossed out. So Jeff thought, well, maybe it's because I've got a UK phone. Maybe if I give them Gary's number, they'll be able to get in touch. So he gives them Gary's number. They call Gary. He tells Jeff, and he calls this guy back. Now, as this is happening, Tonya's in touch with Ashley. She says there's a possibility that we're going to have to leave Ireland. Okay, so I'm aware of this, and I'm doing this Torah portion at the moment with all of this stuff that the Torah portion's about, with people in authority and how to interact with them. Well, Jeff speaks to this guy, and the guy says, no, you're going to have to go. You're abusing the system. That's it. You're going to have to leave Ireland. Now, the way that Jeff's looking at it at the time is, we came in to the port. We tried to encounter immigration there. Couldn't encounter immigration there. Went to the Garda station, couldn't encounter them there. Then speak to this guy, and he says, you know, you've got to leave Ireland. At the time I'm doing the Torah portion, they're now thinking, well, we've got to leave. Where are we going to go? This is like YHVH led us to this point. Why has he led us here only for us to go back to the US? This just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. If that's what his will is, then that's what his will is. But it doesn't seem to make sense at this point. Now I'm doing this Torah portion. I don't know that they've had this phone call and been told you have got to leave Ireland. And there's certain things that we'll see in the second part that are around us making plans and YHVH establishing our plans. And the things like being honest, not lying, having just weights and measures, just certain things that seem to be around this idea. So I think in my head, I've got to ring Jeff and tell him these things. I thought, well, I don't need to tell Jeff these things. It's a bit patronizing. I'm not going to ring him up and tell him this, but it was burning in my head. You need to ring him, you need to ring him, you need to ring him over like the next hour and a half. So in the end, I said to Ashley, we were in the middle of something. I said to her, I'm going to ring Jeff. Call Jeff up. And he says, we've just been told that we've got to leave the country. So to me, I'm like, well, this is it. They've been told now they've got to leave the country. This is something official. They're leaving the country. And he says the way that he sees it, you know, they've been told that twice, and now they've had this word. This is YHVH's will. Otherwise, they would have encountered somebody and had their passports stamped when they entered the country. He tells me that this guy had said to them, if I'd been there that night when you entered the country, I would have refused you entry. And I said to him, just joking, I just said to him, yeah, but you weren't, were you? Just joking, it's not what I would have said to him. But at the moment that I said that, something clicked in my head. I was like, he wasn't there. The immigration people weren't there when you came into the country. They weren't at the police station. They should have been at both of those places. They weren't there. Then this guy wasn't there. This guy who would have said no, they've been told would have said no, he wasn't there either. So I said, well, what you've had is a series of opinions from all of these people, some of them saying, yeah, it'll be fine, and some of them saying, no, you're going to have to go. I said, you need to get an official opinion on whether or not you can stay in the country. So Jeff gets off the phone, and he's obviously thinking about this. He's texting me, and he says, do you really think that we should go up to Dublin? And I said, what has actually happened is not that you've had the official opinion of Ireland, the official position. What's happened is YHVH has navigated you on a course through this situation where you came back and there was no one there, there was no one at the police station. This guy who would have said no, he wasn't there. Now you're at the stage where you need to go to Dublin and get the official word so you can officially find out what's happening here. So they go off to Dublin. When they arrive in Dublin, they go to the main immigration centre in Dublin, and they tell them, we don't have any boarding stamps. Okay, they want basically a stamp on their passport that says, any landing stamps rather, that they landed on that date, and the stamps given in their passport, and then that would allow them 3 months more in the country. And they say, we don't have the landing stamps here. Go to the local Garda station. Okay, this is the one that they went to when they landed. So they went there, and there's some kind of kerfuffle there. There's some drunk people there, some kind of delay. When they finally get to speak to somebody, and again, they're very kind of kind to the people there. The guy looked at them as if to apologize, and Jeff just kind of smiles kindly and says, it's okay, don't worry, we'll wait. When they get to speak to somebody, they tell them that the agent, who is the immigration agent, is out on an assault call. Now, I don't know how it works, whether or not they've got that workload to do, but it does seem a bit weird, the immigration agent being out on an assault call. So they say, you know, there's nothing that we can do for you. So they're thinking, what do we do? They decide to go back to the port. Who's going to have the landing stamps? Who can do all these things? The port can do them. They go back to the port, and they're aware of a building that the only reason that they're aware of is from the very first time that they came to Ireland. They were made aware of this building. So there's been this huge, great chain of events, all these things leading to now. So they go to this building where they know that the immigration officers might be. Jeff knocks on the door. No answer. Or possibly rings the bell and there's no answer. He goes back and he rings the bell and knocks on the door. And then a guy comes to the door. And lo and behold, who is it? It's William. William, the guy that they met when they went to pick Mel up. Okay, William, the guy who was with the very irate woman who they placated. So William comes to the door. What's the very first thing William says to them? He says, I'm not stamping your passport. Great. Now, when I had texted Jeff back, he said, it's funny, just as you sent that text, we were talking about how we'd encountered all these little agents, and what we need to do now is go up to Egypt to see Pharaoh and get Pharaoh's opinion on it. What's the first thing that William says when he answers the door? I'm not signing your passport. Sounding familiar. William says to them, there's no way that I can stamp your passport rather retroactively, because the agent that stamps your passport has to have been there when you entered into the country. If they weren't there when you entered into the country, then there would be a paper trail back that would show that the stamp was illegitimate, and I'd lose my job. So obviously they're like, well, we don't want you to lose your job over this, but there's nothing I think you can do. It transpires. William says there's nothing that he could do at all. So they accept it and they turn around to walk away. And at the moment that they turn around to walk away, William says to them, give me your passports, I'll stamp them. Now it turns out, William tells them later, that as they turned around, something told him to stamp their passports. And he says, I'm a man of God as well. And they get the opportunity to witness to William and tell him who YHVH truly is, to glorify his name, to exalt his name. Not only this, I mean, William's been saying to them, no, I can't do it, no, I can't do it, no, I can't do it, like Pharaoh. Then, at the end, he confesses his sin to them, and he says, I was here that night. I was asleep in this building. That's why they couldn't have got their passport stamped. And that's why it had to be exactly him who was there at that exact time, who knew all of their history. You know, he'd been saying to them, I know you've been doing everything that you could have possibly done. I know that you've been righteous in this. I know that you won't break the law, that you won't go to the UK, you won't break customs and immigration law. I know that you've been righteous. It's been him that's been involved throughout it. And then it was him that was there who happened to be asleep when they entered in. Maybe he wouldn't have been able to stamp the passport, or he wouldn't have stamped the passport because of what had happened with his colleague. Who knows how it would have actually transpired. And it came to my mind afterwards, if they'd had their passport stamped when they entered into Ireland at that time, it would have been, they would have been in Ireland less than the 3 months. So it would have only been 5 months and some days that they were allowed in Ireland. That wouldn't give them the 6 months that they'd have needed to be in Ireland before they could even come over to England. So all of these delays that were there, all these really weird delays, the immigration officers not being there, had to have been exactly that way in order for them to be in Ireland for that exact amount of time, to be able to come back in. It had to happen exactly like that. And it had to be that they walked righteously. They didn't try to bend anything. They didn't try to get those stamps or tell people something that maybe would favor them. They walked exactly in the right, didn't go to the left or to the right, and it ended up with them having that stamp, which could have come about in no other way. And I tell you that before I read through the story of Jeremiah, because that's like a modern day retelling of what happens to Jeremiah in this. So Jeremiah 37 says, and King Zidkiyahu, son of Yoshiyahu, reigned instead of Konyahu of Jehoiakim, whom Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babel, set up to reign in the land of Yehudah. So this is the king Nebuchadnezzar that we saw in the story of Daniel. But neither he nor his servants, nor the people of the land had listened to the words of YHVH, which he spoke by the prophet Yirmiyahu, that's Jeremiah. And Zidkiyahu the king sent Yehuchal, son of Shelemiah, and the priest Zephaniah, son of Maaseiah, to the prophet Yirmiyahu, saying, please pray to YHVH our Elohim for us. Now Yirmiyahu was still coming and going among the people, for they had not yet put him in prison. A bit of a spoiler there. Meanwhile, Pharaoh's army had set out from Mitzrayim, and when the Chaldeans who were besieging Jerusalem heard news of them, they withdrew from Jerusalem. Okay, so you've got the Chaldeans, and they've got a siege of Jerusalem. Pharaoh's army comes to help the people in Jerusalem, and the Chaldeans hear about this, and they withdraw their siege. So the city of Jerusalem is no longer under siege. And the word of YHVH came to Yirmiyahu the prophet, saying, thus said YHVH the Elohim of Yisrael, say this to the king of Yehudah, who sent to me to inquire of me. See, Pharaoh's army, which has come up to help you, shall turn back to Mitzrayim, to their own land. Okay, so we've got these events. The king of Judah has inquired of YHVH, and he wanted an answer. Okay, so that's one event which has set all of this in motion. I want an answer from YHVH. So YHVH says, go to the king of Judah and tell him, see, Pharaoh's army which has come up to help you shall turn back to Mitzrayim, to their own land, and the Chaldeans shall return and fight against this city and take it and burn it with fire. Now we get told later in the narrative that the king of Yehudah is sat in the gate of Benjamin. So that's where he would have to go in order to tell the king of Judah this. Thus said YHVH, do not deceive yourselves, saying the Chaldeans shall go away from us, for they do not go. For though you had smitten the entire army of the Chaldeans who were fighting against you, and there remained only wounded men among them, they would get up, each man in his tent, and burn the city with fire. So he says, go and tell the king of Judah this incredibly difficult thing. Go and tell him that even if they killed all of the Chaldeans, the wounded men that were left, they would come up and they'd destroy the city. They're done for. There's no way that they can win. It came to be when the army of the Chaldeans left the siege of Jerusalem for fear of Pharaoh's army. So all these events set in motion. Pharaoh's army comes up. They leave the siege of Jerusalem, which then would enable Jeremiah to go to the king of Judah. YHVH says, go to the king of Judah and tell him this, that Yirmiyahu went out of Jerusalem to go into the land of Benjamin to receive his portion there in the midst of the people. So now Jeremiah can leave Jerusalem to go and do what YHVH has told him to do. And it came to be as he was in the gate of Benjamin, which is, as we'll see later, where the king of Judah is, a master of the guard was there whose name was Yeriah, son of Shelemiah, son of Hananiah. And he sees Yirmiyahu the prophet saying, you are deserting to the Chaldeans. But Yirmiyahu said, it is a lie, I'm not deserting to the Chaldeans. But he did not listen to him, and Yeriah seized Yirmiyahu and brought him to the heads. So YHVH told him to go and do this thing. He goes out to do it. He's leaving the gate, or he comes to the gate. And now he's arrested by this guy who thinks that he's deserting. And the heads were wroth with Yirmiyahu and put him in prison in the house of Jehonathan the scribe, for they had made that for a prison. So now Jeremiah is like, I was going to do what the Lord wanted me to do, and now I found myself in prison. What's this all about? When Yirmiyahu had entered into the dungeon and into the cells, then Yirmiyahu remained there many days. So he's in prison for ages because he was going to go and do what the Lord had told him to do. Now, I'm sure that he's a great man of faith and he's just waiting to see what the Lord's going to do at this point. But he must be thinking, this isn't great. And Zedekiah the king sent and took him out. And the king asked him secretly in his house and said, is there any word from YHVH? And Yirmiyahu said, there is. And he said, you are given into the hand of the king of Babel. Okay, so this is now where he comes to the king and he can deliver this word to him that YHVH had wanted. YHVH sends him, he gets arrested, put in prison. Then the king comes or sends and takes him out. Then Yirmiyahu said to Zedekiah the king, what have I sinned against you and against your servants and against this people that you've put me into prison? Where are your prophets who prophesied to you, saying the king of Babel is not coming against you or against this land? But now please hear, O my master the king, let my petition be accepted before you, and do not make me return to the house of Jehonathan the scribe, lest I die there. Okay, so Jeremiah has been taken out of his position by being told, go to the king of Judah. He goes and he's put in prison. Remember, YHVH knows that all of this is going to happen. He gets to speak to the king, he gets to do what YHVH sent him to do, but now he gets to ask a particular favor of the king. Zedekiah the king then gave orders for Yirmiyahu to be placed in the court of the guard, and that they should give him daily a piece of bread from the baker's street until all the bread in the city was gone. So if Jeremiah had remained where he was, he would have been in the siege of Jerusalem, which we hear about, where you have people eating their children and all sorts of horrible things. He wouldn't have had any food. So him going out of the city to give this word and getting arrested and getting put in prison for all of this time actually positioned him to ask a favor of the king. And the king gave orders that he should have food every day until all the food ran out. Without that happening, Jeremiah would have died. So Yirmiyahu remained in the court of the guard. Chapter 38 says, and Shaphatiyah, son of Matan, and Gadaliahu, and Pashur, and Yuchal, son of Shelemiyahu, and Pashur, son of Malchiah, heard the words which Yirmiyahu had spoken to all the people, saying, thus said YHVH, he who remains in the city shall die by the sword, by scarcity of food, and by pestilence. But whoever goes over to the Chaldeans shall live, and his life shall be a surprise to him, and he shall live. Thus said Yehovah, this city is certainly given into the hand of the king of Bavel's army, and he shall take it. Then the head said to the king, please let this man be put to death, because he's weakening the hands of the men of battle who are left in this city, and hands of all the people by speaking such words to them. So he's telling everyone to give up. Look, if we're going to fight, put him to death, because he's making them lose their battle. For this man does not seek the peace of this people, but the evil. And Zidkiyahu the king said, look, he is in your hand. The king is unable to do any matter against you. What am I going to do in this condition? They took Yirmiyahu and threw him into the dungeon of Malchiyahu, the king's son, which was in the court of the guard. And they let Yirmiyahu down with ropes. And in the dungeon there was no water, but mud. So Yirmiyahu sank into the mud. Again, you've got to be thinking at this point, even if you're thinking, this is in Yehovah's hands, I'm trusting in him, you've got to be thinking, these conditions aren't great. How long am I going to be in this dungeon? And Eved Melech the Cushite, one of the eunuchs who was in the king's house, heard that they put Yirmiyahu in the dungeon. So because of exactly where he was, and because it's exactly this guy, he hears that they've put him in the dungeon. The king was sitting at the gate of Binyamin. And Eved Melech came from the king's house and spoke to the king, saying, my master the king, these men have done evil in all that they do to Yirmiyahu the prophet, whom they've thrown into the dungeon. And he's likely to die from hunger in the place where he is, for there is no more bread in the city. And the king commanded Eved Melech the Cushite, saying, take 30 men from here with you. Lift Yirmiyahu out of the dungeon before he dies. So again, he would have been in that situation. He'd have thought, this isn't great, but this guy was in the perfect position to go and speak to the king, to get him to take him to somewhere else where he needs to be, as we'll see. So Eved Melech took the men with him, went into the house of the king under the treasury, took old clothes and old rags from there, and they let them down by ropes into the dungeon to Yirmiyahu. And Eved Melech the Cushite said to Yirmiyahu, please put these old clothes and rags under your armpits, under the ropes. And Yirmiyahu did so. And they pulled Yirmiyahu up with ropes and lifted him out of the dungeon, and Yirmiyahu remained in the court of the guard. Then Zidkiyahu the king sent and had Yirmiyahu the prophet brought to him at the third entrance of the house of Yehovah. And the king said to Yirmiyahu, I am asking you a matter. Do not hide the matter from me. Yirmiyahu said to Zidkiyahu, if I declare it to you, shall you not put me to death? And if I give you advice, you shall not listen to me. What's the point? Okay, if I declare this thing to you, you're not going to be happy, you're going to kill me, and the advice you're not going to heed anyway. But Zidkiyahu the king swore secretly to Yirmiyahu, saying, as Yehovah lives, who made us this life, I do not put you to death, nor do I give you into the hand of these men who seek your life. So him being in this position allows him to then get an oath from the king that he will not let any harm come to Jeremiah. And Yirmiyahu said to Zidkiyahu, thus said Yehovah, the Elohim Zebaoth, the Elohim of Yisrael, if you do indeed surrender to the heads of the king of Bavel, then your king shall survive, and the city not be burned with fire, and you and your household shall live. But if you do not surrender to the heads of the kings of Bavel, then this city shall be given into the hand of the Chaldeans, and they shall burn it with fire, and you shall not escape from their hand. Then Zidkiyahu the king said to Yirmiyahu, I'm afraid of the Yehudim who have gone over to the Chaldeans, lest they give me into their hand, and they maltreat me. But Yirmiyahu said, they shall not hand you over. Please obey the voice of Yehovah which I speak to you, and let it be well with you, and your life be spared. But if you refuse to surrender, this is the word that Yehovah has shown me. Then see, all the women who are left in the king of Yehudah's house shall be surrendered to the heads of the king of Bavel. And see, they are saying, your close friends have set upon you and prevailed against you. Your feet have sunk in the mire, and they have turned away again. And they are going to surrender all your wives and children to the Chaldeans. And you yourself shall not escape from their hand, but be taken to the by the hand of the king of Bavel, and the city shall be burned. Give up. It's all going to be well with you. This is all Yehovah's will. Don't give up, it's going to be very, very bad for you. Then Zidkiyahu said to Yirmiyahu, let no one know of these words, and you shall not die. So now Jeremiah has been given a command by the king. Okay, don't let anyone know about these words. But if the heads hear that I've spoken to you, and they come to you and say to you, declare to us now what you've said to the king, and also what the king said to you, do not hide it from us, and we do not put you to death. Then you shall say to them, I presented my petition before the king, not to send me back to the house of Jehonathan to die there. So if these guys come to you and they say, tell us or we're going to kill you, tell them this. And all the heads did come to Yirmiyahu and asked him, and he informed them according to all these words that the king had commanded. Okay, he submits to the authority of the king, and he does what the king's commanded him. He doesn't say, oh, actually, maybe in this situation it's going to be to my benefit if I get these people on my side, because they could kill me right now. He doesn't do that. He does what is right. And they said no more to him, for the matter was not heard. So Yirmiyahu remained in the court of the guard until the day that Jerusalem was taken, and he was there when Jerusalem was taken. So he remains in the court of the guard until Jerusalem is taken. When Jerusalem's taken, because he's in the court of the guard, this happens. And Nebuchadnezzar, or Kadetzer, whichever one, the king of Babel gave an order concerning Yirmiyahu to Nebuzaradan, chief of the guard, saying, take him, look after him, do no harm whatsoever to him, but do to him even as he shall speak to you. So now, because this entire chain of events has worked out in Jeremiah's life, where he's been kept alive, where he's been given these audiences with the king, he was found in this position so that the king of Babylon, the invading force, could come in and say, do to him exactly as he asks of you. So Yehovah was there throughout all these steps. Jeremiah could have taken it upon himself to step out of the Lord's will at any point that he wished, but he didn't. He did exactly what was right in the Lord's eyes. Psalm 33, 8-22 says, let all the earth fear Yehovah, let all the inhabitants of the world stand in awe of him. For he spoke, and it came to be. He commanded, and it stood fast. Yehovah brings the counsel of the nations to naught. He thwarts the plans of the peoples. The counsel of Yehovah stands forever, the plans of his heart to all generations. So it doesn't matter what these rulers come up with. You know, they can have their agenda 2030. If Yehovah doesn't want it to come about, who cares? They'll come up with these plans. They've been coming up with stupid plans for the entirety of history. Blessed is the nation whose Elohim is Yehovah, the people whom he has chosen as his own inheritance. Yehovah has looked from the heavens. He has seen all the sons of men. He looked from his dwelling place on all the inhabitants of the earth. He who fashions the hearts of them all, he who understands all their works. The king is not saved by the multitude of an army. A mighty man is not delivered by his great strength. A horse is a vain means of safety. Neither does it rescue by its great power. Okay, you could say here, getting loads of guns and thinking that you're prepared for something, that's nothing. That's a vain means of safety. To have guns and to think that you're protected, that is vain. You are not putting your trust in Yehovah. They don't rescue by their power. The mighty man's not delivered by his great strength. He's not delivered by the strength of his Barrett 50 cal. See, the eye of Yehovah is on those fearing him, on those waiting for his kindness, to deliver their soul from death and to keep them alive during scarcity of food. Yehovah keeps them alive, just as he did with Jeremiah. He kept Jeremiah alive during scarcity of food. He will keep us alive during scarcity of food as well. We trust in him. We don't trust in ourselves and our own ability to make preparations. Our soul has longed for Yehovah. Our help and our shield is he. For our heart does rejoice in him, for we have put our trust in his set-apart name. Let your kindness, O Yehovah, be upon us, even as we wait for you. Romans 8:16-18 says, the Spirit himself bears witness with our spirit that we are children of Elohim. And if children, also heirs, truly heirs of Elohim and co-heirs with Messiah, if indeed we suffer with him, in order that we also be exalted together. For I reckon that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the esteem that is to be revealed in us. Okay, and just as we'll come to a close with this, I want to look at the scriptures. James, there's probably about, I don't know, about 8 scriptures left or something like that. I want to look at what it is for us to suffer for Yehovah's name, because he will protect us, and he'll keep us from scarcity of food and all of that. But if it's his will, and his will is to achieve a very specific end, then perhaps he will require sacrifice of us. 2 Corinthians 1, 3-10 says, "Blessed be the Elohim and Father of our Master Yeshua Messiah, the Father of compassion and Elohim of all comfort, who is comforting us in all our pressure." Why is he comforting us in all our pressure? What's he achieving through this? "Enabling us to comfort those who are in every pressure." Okay, so when something happens in our life and we have his comfort through it, and he sees us through that event, it enables us to comfort others through the comfort which we ourselves are comforted by Elohim. Because as the sufferings of Messiah overflow in us, so our comfort overflows through Messiah. And if we suffer pressure, it is for your comfort and salvation, being worked out in enduring the same sufferings which we also suffer. If we are comforted, it is for your comfort and salvation. And our expectation for you is steadfast, because we know that as you are sharing in the sufferings, so also in the comfort. For we do not wish you to be ignorant, brothers, of our pressure which came to us in Asia, that we were weighed down exceedingly beyond ability, so that we despaired even of life. Now Paul's going to reveal why it is that despairing of life and thinking that we're going to die is actually a good thing. He says, "Indeed, we had the sentence of death in ourselves." I think that means we had concluded that we were going to die rather than they'd had the death sentence passed over them. "That we should not trust in ourselves, but in Elohim who raises the dead." Because if you're in the position where you're going to die, all you can then do is have trust in Elohim who raises the dead. That is your only trust at that point. "Who rescued us from so great a death, and does rescue, in whom we trust that he shall still rescue us." Matthew 10, 28-39 says, "Do not fear those who can kill the body, but are unable to kill the body and the soul. But rather fear him who is able to destroy soul and body in Gehenna." So this entire context of what he's going to talk about here is not worrying about losing your life, making sure that you're right before Elohim. He says, "Are not 2 sparrows sold for a copper coin, and not one of them falls to the ground without your Father? And even the hairs of your head are all numbered. So do not fear, you are worth more than many sparrows." Okay, so what he's saying here is, look, don't fear those who can kill you. Because even a sparrow, his life doesn't come to an end without it being under your Father's power. And you're worth more than many sparrows. All the hairs of your head are numbered. Don't forget that Elohim's in charge of every single event here. "Everyone therefore who shall confess me before men, him I shall also confess before my Father who is in the heavens. But whoever shall deny me before men, him I shall also deny before my Father who is in the heavens." So the context is, don't fear them doing harm to you. If it comes to you bearing witness of following the Father, or you following the Father and doing what is right, do that. Okay? If you do that, and you confess me before men, I'll confess you before my Father. But if you do fear those who kill the body, and you deny me before men, I will also deny you before the Father who's in the heavens. "Do not think that I've come to bring peace on earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. But I have come to bring division, a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against their mother-in-law. And a man's enemies are those of his own household. He who loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me, and he who loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me." So when it comes to the people who are in our family, when it comes to speaking the truth to them, okay, or doing the truth when they want us to do something else perhaps, we are to confess Yeshua before them, and we're not to fear even physical retribution. "He who does not take up his cross and follow after me is not worthy of me." What's the context of this? Yes, it means, sacrifice as Yeshua sacrificed. But the context is giving your life for Yeshua. Don't fear those who can kill the body. Have your eyes set on the eternal. That's how Yehovah looks at these things. He sees what comes after it. It doesn't matter if someone takes your life, because what are they doing? They're taking your life so that you can go and be at rest and be with him. He who has found his soul shall lose it, and he that has lost his soul for my sake shall find it. Okay, again, all the context. Don't fear those who kill the body, fear those who can kill the soul. You lose your soul, okay, in this earthly realm for his sake. If you lose it for his sake, you'll find it, okay, in Sheol. You find your soul, in other words, you look after your life in this world more than you look after him, and you deny him, then you'll lose your soul by the one that can kill body and soul. Revelation 6, 9 to 11 says, when he opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of those having been slain for the word of Elohim and for the witness which they held. I can go back and forth on this verse, whether or not these souls are actually not in Sheol, whether they are particular souls that are in heaven, but it doesn't actually matter. Could just be that their souls, their lives that they've given up, speak to Elohim. Whichever one it is, I could see it both ways. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, how long, O Master, set apart and true, until you judge and avenge our blood on those who dwell on the earth? And there was given to each one a white robe, and they were told that they should rest a little while longer, until both the number of their fellow servants and their brothers who would be killed as they were was completed. Okay, so for these people, the people who give their lives, it's all part of Yehovah's will. It's part of his plan. And he even says there's a number of them that have got to be killed, and they've not all been killed yet. Isaiah 57, 1 to 2 says, the righteous one has perished, and no one takes it to heart. Kind men are taken away, while no one understands that the righteous one is taken away from the presence of evil. This is Yehovah's purpose, and he sees these things completely different than we see it. Okay, if the righteous one's taken away, he's taken away from the presence of evil. He enters into peace, and those who walk in integrity rest on their beds. Okay, it's no big deal to Yehovah if someone who is righteous dies. It is a big deal if someone who is unrighteous dies, though, because they're going to have their soul destroyed as well. In the second part, we're going to look at our plans and our devices and how it is that Yehovah respects them and establishes them or changes them, and when he does that, and how we're to come to our own plans within our life. Okay, we'll come back shortly. Okay, we're trying to stream and project off the same computer this week, so hence the technical difficulties. In the last part, we were looking at how Yehovah influences the lives of rulers, and how he influences our lives in regard to if we're in physical danger. You know, there's all these promises of protection, but sometimes it's his will that we give up our lives, and that we see that our lives actually being given up, as long as we're walking with him, is not a bad thing. We're taken away from the presence of evil to be at peace, and that's a good thing. This is going to look at how he affects our lives, kind of how he's intimately involved in every second of our lives. Philippians 4, 6 to 7 says, do not worry at all, but in every matter by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to Elohim. So if you're doing this, you're going to have great peace. If you're actually a believer in the Word of God, you're going to have great peace because of the things that he promises and the things that we're going to see about how he interacts with us. Okay, in every matter, don't worry. To take every matter by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, how you enter into his courts with praise and thanksgiving. You make your requests known to Elohim. And then it says, and the peace of Elohim, the shalom of Elohim, which surpasses all understanding, shall guard your hearts and minds. So whatever the situation is, because you can bring it before the King of the universe, that brings great peace, knowing that it's all just in his hands. Again, the Dudeks, you know, when they were in the situation where they thought that they had to leave Ireland, they didn't have anywhere to go. You know, they didn't know what they were going to do, but they still had peace through it, knowing that it was in Elohim's hands, and all they desired to do in that moment was to take it to him in prayer, go to their Father for direction. For the rest, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is righteous, whatever is clean, whatever is lovely, whatever is of good report, if there's any uprightness and if there's any praise, think on these. Don't worry about what's going on in the world. Don't look at things that are not good. Don't look at what other people are doing. Don't look at the evil of other men. Look at what is good. Look at what's true, what's noble, what's righteous, what's clean. Look at his word. Don't worry about those other things. Leave them just in his hands, because those things stress us out and they affect us emotionally. And if we're doing these things, then we're stepping just that slight bit outside of his will. It says, what you've learned and received and heard and saw in me, practice these and the Elohim of peace shall be with you. So we focus on people like Yeshua, on people who walk the word out. Whatever we've learned and we've received, that's enough for us to be thinking about and going forward with. There's enough in ourselves that we need to bring into conformity with the image of Yeshua for us to think on those things, to read the Psalms, to read the Proverbs, read what's good and true, read what happens at the end. Don't focus on the dark. Psalm 139, 1-18 says, O Yehovah, you have searched me and know me. You know my sitting down and my rising up. You understand my thought from afar. You sift my path and my lying down and know well all my ways. For there is not a word on my tongue, but see, O Yehovah, you know it all. You have closed me in behind and before and laid your hand upon me. Knowledge too wondrous for me. It is high. I am unable to reach it. Okay, in all these situations, we just say, his thoughts are higher than our thoughts. His ways are higher than our ways. So whatever's going on, if we think that it's bad, we just being surrendered to him. Take it to him in prayer and petition. Make our requests known, but do not become anxious. Where would I go from your spirit, or where would I flee from your face, from your panim? If I go up into the heavens, you are there. If I make my bed in Sheol, see, you are there. If I take my wings of the morning, I dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea. There too your hand would lead me, and your right hand hold me. There's people who are watching this, and I know that there will be people who are scattered all around the world, who are isolated and who are lonely. And there's things going on in your life, and you're thinking, what about me? Has Yehovah forgotten about me? Is what's going on now? Well, you know, why is this going on? Yehovah intimately knows every moment of our lives, everything that's happening to us. He knows that it's happening. He hasn't forgotten about us. If I say darkness shall cover me, then night would be light to me. Even darkness is not dark for you, but night shines as the day. As is darkness, so is light. For you possess my kidneys. You have covered me in my mother's womb. I give thanks to you, for I am awesomely and wondrously made. Wondrous are your works, and my soul knows it well. My bones were not concealed from you when I was shaped in a hidden place, knit together in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed body, and in your book all of them were written, the days they were formed while none was among them. In other words, the days that they were formed were known when they hadn't come to pass yet. And how precious are your thoughts to me, O El, how great has been the sum of them. If I should count them, they would be more than the sand. When I wake up, I'm still with you. Psalm 94, 17-23 says, if Yehovah had not been my help, my soul would have soon settled in silence. When I said my foot has slipped, your kindness, O Yehovah, supported me. When anxiety was great within me, your comforts delighted my soul. But again, we've got to be submitted to the process. We've got to believe the word of Elohim for these things to be true. We've got to believe that this is true for it to be of comfort to us. Would the throne of destruction, which devises trouble by decree, be joined with you? Okay, so again, we think of the rulers. They devise trouble by decree. They make laws that are not good, just as we saw being done by King YHVH to Daniel. Okay, well, the rulers to Daniel to do bad things to the believers. Okay, would they be joined with the Elohim though? They band together against the life of the righteous and declare innocent blood wrong. But Yehovah is my defense, and my Elohim, the rock of my refuge. Don't worry about the things that they're doing in the world. Don't worry about how they're changing the laws to take the 10 Commandments out of schools, or how they're making it so that you can't worship Elohim. Whatever it is, no matter how bad they make it, even if they make worshipping Yehovah to be done on pain of death, he is our defense, and he will protect us. And brings back on them their own wickedness and cuts them off in their own wrongdoing. Yehovah, our Elohim, does cut them off. Psalm 145 says, I exalt you, my Elohim, O King, and bless your name forever and ever. All day long I bless you and praise your name forever and ever. Great is Yehovah and greatly to be praised, and his greatness is unsearchable. Generation after generation praise your works, and they declare your mighty acts. I declare the esteemed splendor of your excellency and the matters of your wondrous works. And they speak of the might of your awesome acts, and I recount your greatness. They send forth the remembrance of your great goodness, and they sing of your righteousness. Yehovah shows favor and is compassionate, patient, and great in kindness. Yehovah is good to all, and he has compassion on all his works. All your works give thanks to you, O Yehovah, and your kind ones bless you. They speak of the esteem of your kingdom and talk of your might, to make known to the sons of men his mighty acts and the esteemed splendor of his kingdom. Again, his works achieve this in the earth. They achieve his name being exalted and made great, and all matters work together for good to those who love him and are called according to his purpose. Your kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and your rule is throughout all generations. Yehovah is supporting all who are falling and raising up all who are bowed down. The eyes of all look to you expectantly, and you are giving them their food in its season, opening your hand and satisfying the desire of all that live. Yehovah is righteous in all his ways and kind in all his works. And as Yeshua said, he's kind even to the unthankful. I'll just recap for the people who are online. Okay, basically what I'm looking at is how intimately involved in our lives Yehovah is. In everything, absolutely anywhere that we go, anything that's happening in our life, Yehovah knows about it, and it's his will that it's happening. Now, we're going to have a look at reasons why bad things might be happening and things like that, but absolutely don't think that he's ever forgotten about you. Well, he doesn't know what's going on, even if you think that it's bad. I'm sure Jeremiah, when he was in the dungeon, must have thought, what on earth is going on? Okay, so verse 17 says, Yehovah is righteous in all his ways and kind in all his works. Yehovah is near to all who call upon him, and to all who call upon him in truth. He does the desire of those who fear him, and he hears their cry and saves them. Yehovah preserves all those loving him, but all the wrong ones he destroys. And this is kind of like a persistent theme. Okay, he will preserve the people who love him and fear him. He'll preserve their life unto eternal life. The wrong ones he'll destroy. Going back to the idea of don't fear him who can kill the body, fear him who can kill the body and soul. Because even if it's part of his plan for you to give your life because you will not deny him and you will not deny his name, he will still preserve you. He'll still preserve your life unto life eternal. But the wrong ones, whatever they do, they'll be destroyed. So don't find yourself in a situation and think, I've got to do something to save my own life here, or to make something about my life better or more comfortable. If it involves breaking the word of Yehovah, absolutely do the word of Yehovah and do evil to yourself, if you like. It says that he let them suffer hunger in the wilderness to test them, to see what was in their hearts. Okay, so even if we've got to suffer hunger in order to do what he says is righteous, we just see it as a test. He's not forgotten about us. He knows exactly what's happening in that situation. All he's trying to do is see those who love him and who are the wrong ones. My mouth speaks the praise of Yehovah, and let all flesh bless his set-apart name forever and ever. Proverbs 19:20-23 says, listen to counsel and accept discipline so that you're wise in your latter end. This is the other thing which is involved in these things. There's having just weights and measures. There's not lying. There's also accepting discipline. Because it could be in that situation that it's discipline that's happening in your life. We'll see those four sort of things around it. Many are the plans in a man's heart, but it is the counsel of YHVH that stands. And we're going to be looking at what it is for us to make plans in our heart about what to do. Are we to wait on every decision and be like, I'm just waiting for YHVH to tell me what plan to make in my heart? Plans are in our hearts, what we decide to do. The counsel of YHVH that will stand in the end, though. What is desirable in a man is his kindness. A poor man is better than a liar. So also what we see around these things is kindness. The fear of YHVH leads to life, and he remains satisfied. He is not visited by evil. Proverbs 16, 1-9 says, to a man belongs the preparations of the heart, but from YHVH is the answer of the tongue. So we make our plans, YHVH will establish them or not. All the ways of a man are clean in his own eyes, but YHVH weighs the spirits. Commit your works to YHVH, and your plans shall be established. YHVH has made all for his purpose, and also the wrong for the day of evil. So as we go through this, what we're going to see is we make our plans, and we don't know which plans are going to succeed and which plans are going to fail. But we do what is according to our heart. But we remember through all of it that for all of our works, he will bring us into judgment. Okay, so we commit our works to YHVH. We remember that for all of them, we'll be brought into judgment. If we do that, then he'll be with us. Everyone proud in heart is an abomination to YHVH. Hand to hand he goes not unpunished. By kindness and truth crookedness is pardoned, and in the fear of YHVH one turns away from evil. When a man's ways please YHVH, he makes even his enemies to be at peace with him. And we saw that with Jeremiah, we saw it with Daniel, we see it all the way throughout Scripture. Better is a little with righteousness than a large income without mishpat. I think as I'm going through the Torah portions, I'm just going to put the word mishpat in there instead of judgment or right ruling, because they don't really get it. The English concepts aren't really mishpat. Mishpat is YHVH's idea of what justice is. In whatever situation, you do whatever justice is. It's kind of like righteousness, but it's doing right by other people, doing what is just in the situation. A man's heart plans his way, but YHVH establishes his steps. An oath is on the lips of the king. In mishpat his mouth trespasses not. A right scale and balances are of YHVH. All the weights in the bag are his work. It is an abomination for kings to commit wrongness for a throne is established by righteousness. Okay, just like King Nebuchadnezzar. Okay, he was told, if you do these things, if you do righteousness, you show favor to the poor, then it might be that it's extended. Now, this is really interesting. It says, righteous lips are the delight of kings, and they love him who speaks what is straight. Okay, this is talking about rulers, talking about people in positions of power, people who've got money. Okay, all of these people are used to people coming to them and lying to them, and twisting things and trying to manipulate them and trying to get something out of them. I've worked with somebody who was in a position where he had considerably more wealth than the people under him. And they would always be coming to him to try and get money out of him in one way or another. And obviously he hated it. You could see right through him. He was an intelligent guy. But I would always speak what was true and what was right to him, even when it was the exact opposite of what he wanted to hear. But he really respected that, and you'll find that with people like this. Don't try to say something that you think they want to hear. Don't try to manipulate it at all. Do what is right. Don't lie. Have a right scale and balances, whether it's with somebody who's rich or whether it's with somebody who's poor. Always just walk straight down the line with them. Kings, rulers, people of power love righteous lips. They love him who speaks what is straight, because more or less they're just not used to it. Proverbs 20:24 says, the steps of a man are from YHVH. What does a man know about his own way? It's quite an interesting one, isn't it? Jeremiah 10:23-24 says, O YHVH, I know the way of man is not in himself. It is not for man who walks to direct his own steps. He makes the plans of his heart, but he submits them to Yehovah, if he's one of Yehovah's people anyway. Oh, Yehovah, chastise me, but with mishpat, with justice. Chastise me justly, not in your displeasure, lest you bring me to naught. Again, it's where you're going to end up. You're going to be chastised in his displeasure and you're going to be destroyed, or you're going to be chastised by him and brought back onto the path where your body and soul will not be destroyed. Ephesians 2:8-10 says, for by favor or by grace you have been saved through belief, and that not of yourselves, it is the gift of Elohim. It is not by works, so that no one should boast. Okay, Elohim shows favor to whom he will show favor. For we are his workmanship, created in Messiah Yeshua unto good works, which Elohim prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. But if we just do what is right, like Jeremiah, who's just like, he was like, okay, I'm just going to go and do what Yehovah has told me to do. He spoke to him and said, go to this place. He went out of the gate, he got captured, he found himself in prison, but he was just doing what was right. Daniel, who just went about his life doing what was right, praying to Elohim, doing the things that are right in Elohim's sight, and then he was known so that in that particular situation, he was called upon. Okay, these things have been prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. Okay, Yeshua was slain before the foundation of the world. That was a work that was prepared beforehand that Yeshua should walk in it. Ecclesiastes 11:4-9 says, he who watches the wind does not sow. He who looks at the clouds does not reap. Okay, so if you're looking for signs before you do something, you're not going to do it. As you do not know what is the way of the wind, or how the bones grow in the womb of her who is with child, so you do not know the works of Elohim who makes all. Okay, we're not going to be able to prefigure out everything that Elohim's going to do. We just get on and do stuff. Sow your seed in the morning, and until evening do not let your hand rest, since you do not know which prosper, this or that, or whether both alike are good. You don't know what's going to come. Don't know what's going to work, what's not going to work. Just get on and do it. Sweet also is the light, and good for the eyes to see the sun. But if a man lives many years, let him rejoice in them all. But let him remember the days of darkness, for they are many. All that is coming is futility. So we're told to remember the word of Elohim, to do right, basically. It says, rejoice, O young man, in your youth, and let your heart gladden you in the days of your youth. Walk in the ways of your heart and in the sight of your eyes, but know that for all these, Elohim brings you into mishpat. He's going to do what's just, but walk in the ways of your heart according to the sight of your eyes. Just do the things that are in front of you. But know that in doing them, you've got to walk straight. You've got to walk correct when you do them. James 4:13-15 says, come now, you who say today or tomorrow, let us go to such and such a city, spend a year there and trade and make a profit. When you do not know of tomorrow, for what is your life? For it is a vapor that appears for a little and then disappears. Instead of your saying, if the master desires, we shall live and do this or that. But now, you boast in your proud speeches. All such boasting is wicked. This word desires is his will. What's often translated as his will. Okay, so when we say, I'm going to go and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, we don't just proudly state that that's what we're going to do, because we make the plans of our heart, but he establishes our steps. So we make the plans in our heart and we say, if Yehovah wills, we will do this, or we will do that. Anything else, all such boasting is wicked, in just declaring, I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that. Psalm 37 says, do not fret because of evildoers. Do not be envious of the workers of unrighteousness, for they soon wither like grass and fade like green plants. Again, the theme that's throughout all of this, you've got the people who will end up in Sheol at peace and at rest, even if they've got to give their lives for that. And then you've got the wicked who are just going to pass away. Trust in Yehovah and do good. Dwell in the earth and feed on steadfastness. Delight yourself in Yehovah and let him give you the desires of your heart. Commit your way to Yehovah and trust in him, and he does it. You make the plans in your heart, he establishes your steps. And he shall bring forth your righteousness as the light and your mishpat at midday. If you're trusting in him and you're doing his word, you're doing what he says is righteous, he's going to bring forth your righteousness. You will then be doing righteousness because you've trusted in him and committed your ways to him. Rest in Yehovah and wait patiently for him. Do not fret because of him who prospers in his way, because of the man doing wicked devices. Don't look around and say, look at all of these people. They're doing so much better than we're doing, because they're not. Don't look at them and be envious of them. Abstain from displeasure and forsake wrath. I like that. Oh, no, I was doing wickedness, but at the moment I'm going to do good because, I'm abstaining from displeasure. I'm abstaining from the wrath of the Lord at the moment. Do not fret also to do evil, for evildoers are cut off, but those who wait on Yehovah, they shall inherit the earth. And this is a theme that we'll see throughout this, about inheriting the earth. Okay, don't fear those who can kill the body. Fear him who can kill the body and soul. Yet a little while and the wrong is no more, and you shall look on his place, but it is not. For the meek ones shall inherit the earth and delight themselves in plenty of peace. The wrong plots against the righteous and gnashes his teeth at him. Yehovah laughs at him, for he sees that his day is coming. The wrong have drawn the sword and have bent their bow to cause the poor and the needy to fall, to slay those who walk straightly. So again, they devise these things against the righteous. Okay, they've drawn their swords, they've bent their bow. Their sword does enter into their own heart, and their bows are broken. Better is the little of the righteous one than the riches of many wrongdoers. For the arms of the wrongdoers are broken, but Yehovah sustains the righteous. Yehovah knows the days of the perfect, and their inheritance is forever. They are not ashamed in a time of evil, and in the days of scarcity of food, they are satisfied again. But the wrongdoers shall perish, and the enemies of Yehovah, like the splendor of the meadows, they vanish. Like smoke, they vanish away. The wrongdoer is borrowing and does not repay, but the righteous one shows favor and gives. For his blessed ones inherit the earth, but those cursed by him are cut off. You see the theme all the way through. Don't worry about anything that they're doing, okay? They're going to be cut off. They're not doing better. They're going to be dead at the end of it. Worry about your own way. Better is a little with righteousness than the riches of those people. The steps of man are ordered by Yehovah, and he delights in his way. Though he falls, he's not cast down, for Yehovah is his supporting hand. I have been young and now I'm old, yet I have not seen the righteous forsaken or his seed begging bread. All day long he is showing favor and lending, and his seed is for a blessing. Turn away from evil and do good and dwell forever. Okay, the actual goal of everything, not your immediate circumstances. Dwell forever, have eternal life. But Yehovah loves Mishpat, and does not forsake his kind ones. They shall be guarded forever, but the seed of the wrongdoers is cut off. The righteous shall inherit the earth and dwell in it forever. The mouth of the righteous speaks wisdom, and his tongue talks of Mishpat. The Torah of his Elohim is in his heart. His steps do not slide. The wrong one is watching for the righteous and is seeking to slay him. Yehovah does not leave him in his hand or let him be declared wrong when he is judged. So the evil, they'll be trying to do harm to us. Yehovah is the one who's in control of all of that, and he will not let them. Wait on Yehovah and guard his way, and he shall exalt you to inherit the earth. When the wrongdoers are cut off, you shall see it. I have seen the wrongdoer in great power and spreading himself like a native green tree. Again, it kind of harkens back to the imagery of the dream that we had of the big tree. Yet he passed away, and see, he was not. And I sought him, but he was found not. Watch the perfect and observe the straight, for the latter end of each is shalom. But the transgressors shall be destroyed together. The latter end of the wrong shall be cut off. But the deliverance of the righteous is from Yehovah, their strength in the time of distress. And Yehovah does help them and deliver them. He delivers them from the wrongdoers and saves them, because they took refuge in him. Proverbs 3, my son, do not forget my Torah, and let your heart watch over my commands. For length of days and long life and peace, shalom, they add to you. Let not kindness and truth forsake you. That's an interesting one as well. Like the idea of I'm abstaining from wrath. I'm abstaining from Yehovah's displeasure. Don't let kindness and truth forsake you. Yehovah's kindness and truth, don't let them forsake you by straying from the Torah. Bind them around your neck, write them on the tablet of your heart, because if you do this with the commandments, then kindness and truth will not forsake you, but it's your choice about how you live. Thus finding favor and good insight in the eyes of Elohim and man. If you find favor and good insight in the eyes of Elohim, his kindness and truth will not forsake you. But you also find it in the eyes of man, and we see examples of that throughout Scripture. Trust in Yehovah with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. This is exactly what the Dudeks were doing, isn't it? Okay, they could have lent on their own understanding. They could have gone about it and tried to make things the way that they wanted them to be. And they could have thought, wow, great, we've got this, we've got the stamp on our passport. Oh, we got it 3 days early, and now we're in a load of a mess. Know him in all your ways, and he makes all of your paths straight. Exodus 11, 2-3. Speak now in the hearing of the people, and let every man ask from his neighbor, and every woman from her neighbor, objects of silver and objects of gold. Okay, what do you think would happen if you went next door and knocked on the door and said, have you got any silver or gold? If you have, I'd like very much if you gave it to me. Okay? It would be a nonsense, wouldn't it? But if Yehovah gives us favor in their eyes, he can do whatever he wants. We're never to look at our situation and despair and say, well, that's the end of it. If I follow Yehovah's word here, I'm going to find myself destitute. I'm going to find myself poor. Yehovah gave the people favor in the eyes of the Mitzrites. And the man Moshe was very great in the land of Mitzrayim, in the eyes of Pharaoh's servants and in the eyes of the people. If he wants to give you favor in somebody's eyes, he can do it in a second. We've seen this happening to people when they've gone over their jobs and they've said, you know, I need 9 days off so that I can go to Sukkot this year. This is just a bizarre thing, isn't it? That people would never grant anybody else. And yet they're given favor in the eyes of these people. They love those who speak straight. They love those who speak righteousness. Probably don't even know why they like it or why they're even doing the things that they're doing. John 9, 1-3. This brings us to illness. Okay, because what is it in our lives when we're ill, when we have illness? What are the things, what are the possibilities? As I say, received a number of emails about this. People kind of, what's going on, Lord? I'm walking in your ways. John 9, 1-3 says, and passing by, he saw a man blind from birth. And his disciples asked him, saying, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he should be born blind? So they instantly, as many people do, go to sin first and say, who was it that sinned in order for this man to be born blind? And the sin of people's parents can cause them to have defects. I knew somebody who had no arms. He had hands, but he had no arms. And he couldn't walk properly. He had to walk on a walker. And it was because his parents were heroin addicts. His mum was a heroin addict when she was pregnant. And so he was born with that affliction. So you could absolutely see it just in that regard. But Yeshua answered, saying, neither this man nor his parents sinned, but that the works of Elohim might be made manifest in him. So when we look at our situations, you know, I've had great healing in my life. I've had neurological condition healed, and I've had my eyes healed. Charlie's had his liver healed back to the liver function test of a baby after being an alcoholic. And what I've observed from those sort of things is when Yehovah's got some kind of purpose that he wants to fulfill in it, then he will bring healing. You know, if I'd continued with that neurological condition, I wouldn't have had motor functions, and any intellectual capacity would have been greatly diminished. And he healed me of that. And now I'm able to do the work for his kingdom, and Charlie's able to do the work for his kingdom. So that was the theme that I've observed there. But when people are in those positions and they're thinking, well, I've got something wrong with me, and it's not being healed, and I've looked at myself and I can't find anything wrong with me, so why have I still got this condition? Like, I'm diabetic. You know, it can massively affect my life every day. I know for a fact that if Yehovah wanted to, it would be nothing for him to just go, oh, you're healed. There you go. Great. Go on. Do whatever you're going to do. But perhaps and this is a possibility that we all have with things in our lives. Perhaps it's so that the works of Elohim can be made manifest in me. Perhaps he's going to heal me at some miraculous point in the future. The point isn't that I think he's going to do that. The point is that I don't know why that is the situation. And we're not to look at things in despair. What we're to look at them and know is that Yehovah knows about that situation, and he wants it to be that way for whatever reason. His ways are higher than our ways. His thoughts are higher than our thoughts. And we are to just accept it. And accepting it is actually perhaps the point in the trial in the first place, as we'll get onto. But it could be so that the works of Elohim are made manifest in us. Not good for us to focus on this and go, well, it's going to be this amazing thing. He's going to heal me one day. Maybe that's true, but we leave it in his hand and submit to him. In 1 Corinthians 11, 27 to 32, we see another possibility. It says, so that whoever should eat this bread or drink this cup of the master unworthily should be guilty of the body and blood of the master. Okay, so when we come together and we remember him, and we eat bread and we drink wine, we do so to remember him. If we do it unworthily, it brings about bad repercussions. But let a man examine himself, and so let him eat of that bread and drink of that cup. For the one who is eating and drinking unworthily eats and drinks judgment to himself, not discerning the body of the master. Because of this, because they were doing this, many are weak and sick among you, and many sleep. Many are dead. He's writing to an assembly saying, look, many of you are dead because you don't do this worthily with the body and blood of Yeshua, the symbols of that. For if we were to examine ourselves, we would not be judged. But when we are judged, we are disciplined by the Master, that we should not be condemned with the world. So this is a real possibility. People tend to just do this like it's just a religious act. Like it's just like, oh, it's bread and wine. We'll all get round together and we'll have some bread and we'll have some wine. And they don't really understand what's happening. And they'll do it in a position where they've got sin in their lives. And they'll just be like, oh, well, obviously that doesn't matter. I'm just going to have the bread and wine because it's bread and wine time. This is given to us as a reason why many are sick. In Job, we're going to see perhaps the point that I'm trying to make with this, and the point that really comes through. When people have an enduring disease, it can be to bring this out of people. Okay, questioning who Yehovah is. In the Young Literal Translation of Job 1:8, it says, and Yehovah said unto the adversary, Ha-Satan in Hebrew means the adversary, hast thou set thy heart against my servant Job, because there is none like him in the land, a man perfect and upright, fearing God and turning aside from evil. So Ha-Satan's given the ability now to trouble Job and to take things from Job. And at the end of chapter 1, it says, and Job rose up and tore his robe and shaved his head, and he fell to the ground and did obeisance. This is after he's had his kids taken from him and all his stuff taken from him. Everything's just gone terrible for Job. But he rises up, tears his robe, shaves his head, mourning ritual before the Torah was given. And he said, naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I return there. Yehovah has given, and Yehovah has taken away. Blessed be the name of Yehovah. In all this, Job did not sin or ascribe wrongdoing unto Elohim. So we see in these situations that Ha-Satan will come and he'll try to get us to either sin, to go against Yehovah, to totally rebel, or to ascribe wrongdoing to Yehovah for our situation. Oh, he's taken all this stuff away from us. It's Yehovah's fault. Why is Yehovah doing this? So this is what the adversary is trying to get Job to do, but he can't get Job to do it by taking his stuff away from him. Job 2:3-6, it says, and Yehovah said to Satan, to Ha-Satan, have you set your heart against my servant Job? Because none is like him on the earth, a perfect and straight man, one who fears Elohim and turns aside from evil. And still he holds fast to his integrity, and you move me against him to destroy him without a cause? And Ha-Satan answered Yehovah and said, skin for skin, and all that a man has he would give for his life. But stretch out your hand, please, and strike his bone and his flesh, if he would not curse you to your face. So afflict him in his body, If you afflict him in his body, we'll see how good his faith is. Okay? And many people are afflicted in their bodies, and many people turn to questioning Yehovah. They forget that he is intimately involved in everything that's going on in their lives, and they begin to question him. Yehovah said to Hasatan, "He is in your hand, only spare his life. Don't kill him. Afflict him in his body, but don't kill him." We'll see what kind of a man Job is. After this, Job opened his mouth and cursed the day of his birth. And Job spoke and said, "Let the day perish on which I was born, and the night it was said, a male child has been conceived." And we might think, well, at least he's not cursing Yehovah. But what he is doing is he's questioning Yehovah, and he's questioning his plan, that what he's doing is right. Cursed be the day that I was born on, instead of submitting to him and trusting him. And he says, why does he give light to the sufferer and life to the bitter of soul, who are waiting for death, but it does not come, and search it more than treasures, who rejoice exceedingly when they are glad when they find the grave? Why does he give light to a man whose way has been hidden and whom a lower has hedged in? And people absolutely find themselves in this position where they're like, why is he doing this? Why would he do this? It's not right that he does this. Job 4:3-6, his friend rebukes him and says, "See, you've instructed many and you've made weak hands strong. Your words have raised up him who is stumbling, and you've strengthened the weak knees. But now it's come to you and you're impatient. It strikes you and you're troubled. Is not your reverence, your trust, the integrity of your ways, your expectancy?" Okay, so he says to him basically, look, you've counseled many people through similar things like this. You know that Yehovah's in charge. You know that your ways are right before him. Is that not your expectancy? Is that not what you trust in, your reverence of Yehovah? It's come to you, though, and now you're questioning Yehovah. Job 5:17 says, look, blessed is the man whom a lower does reprove. So do not despise the discipline of the Almighty. They presume that it's Yehovah's discipline. And you will often find this with illness as well. People will either tell you that it's because you've not got enough faith, or because Elohim is disciplining you because you've sinned, something like that. But we don't know why Elohim does these things. And as I say, sometimes it's to bring this out of people, where they will question who he is and why he's doing the things that he's doing. Job 6:1-3 says, and Job answered and said, "Oh, that my grief were thoroughly weighed and my calamity be placed on the scales, for it would outweigh the sand of the sea. Therefore my words have been rash." So in the situation we're talking about, it's like, if only you could know how bad this affliction in my body is, how bad this illness that I'm suffering is. It's so terrible. That's why I'm saying the things that I am against Yehovah. He tries to justify himself. Teach me and I shall be silent, and show me where I've gone astray. Words of uprightness are harsh, but what does your reproving reprove? Do you reckon to reprove my words and the saying of one in despair, which are as the wind? So it's like if we went to somebody who was suffering great sickness, and they'd said, if only you could appreciate just how bad this was in my life. You say, look, you can speak these things to me and say that I should trust in Yehovah, but what are you hoping to achieve through this? All that you're reproving are the sayings of one in despair. You're not reproving somebody who's doing something wicked. So at this point, Job won't recognize that he's doing wickedly. Job 7:12-21 says, am I the sea or a sea monster that you set a guard over me? And he really starts to lay into Yehovah at this point. When I say my bed does comfort me, my couch does ease my complaint, then you frighten me with dreams and make me afraid with visions. Be like, when I seek comfort in my bed because of my illness, I'm in discomfort and I turn over and my side hurts and, you know, whatever the situation is. But ascribing it to Yehovah, so that my soul chooses strangling death rather than my bones. I have wasted away, I would not live forever. Leave me alone, for my days are a breath. What is man that you should make him great, and that you should set your heart on him, so that you should visit him every morning, trying him every moment? How long do you not look away from me, nor leave me alone till I swallow my saliva? Have I sinned? What have I done to you, O watcher of men? Why have you set me as your target, so that I am a burden to you? Why do you not pardon my transgression and take away my iniquity? For now I lie down in the dust, and you shall seek me, but I am not. If I've done something wrong, why don't you forgive me? Why don't you show me what it is that I've done wrong? Why are you troubling me? Why are you doing this to me? If I'm righteous, my mouth would declare me wrong. Am I perfect? It would declare me perverse. Am I perfect? Do I not know my own soul? I despise my life. Man's innocency is not to be condemned by afflictions. It is all the same. Therefore I say, he destroys the perfect and the wicked. He says, what are you doing? Are you going to condemn me by afflictions, my innocency in everything that I've done? I'm the perfect, not just the wicked. So I say now that he destroys the perfect and the wicked. If the scourge slays suddenly, he laughs at the trial of the innocent. Earth has been given into the hand of the wicked. He covers the faces of its judges. If it is not he, then who is it? His friend Zophar the Amathite said, should a multitude of words go unanswered? Should a man of lips be declared right? Should your babbling silence men, and should you mock and no one make you ashamed? Since you've said my discourse is flawless, and I have been clean in your eyes. So his friends come. He's in great affliction. He's in great pain. Got whatever physical condition wrong with him. And they're telling him what's right. They're saying to him, basically, you're going on and on and on about this, and you cursing Yehovah and you're accusing Yehovah. Should that silence us? Then Yehovah himself answered the Yov out of the whirlwind and said, who is this that darkens counsel by words without knowledge? Job says, Yehovah, should the reprover contend with the Almighty? Let him who reproves a lower answer it. And Eov answered Yehovah and said, see, I am insignificant. What would I answer you? I lay my hand over my mouth. Once I have spoken, but I have no answer. And twice, but I say no more. Okay, at this point, even still, he's not repentant. Elohim's basically come to him, explained to him that he doesn't know what he's talking about. And even at this point, Job's like, all right, I'll shut up. Fair enough. But later, and I'd suggest that people read Job chapters 38 through 42. Job answered Yehovah and said, you know that you are able to do all, and that no purpose is withheld from you. Who is this that hides counsel without knowledge? Therefore, I declared, but I did not understand. Matters too marvelous for me, which I did not know. Okay, and I would say to anybody who is watching this online, who is ill, look at Job's attitude. Okay, if you've come to a point where you're despairing, and you think I just can't go on with this pain or whatever it is, know that Yehovah has brought that about in your life for a purpose. And this is one of the purposes that he has. When you start to question him, has Hasatan been given the authority in your life to afflict you, so that you begin to question and so that you begin to ascribe wrongdoing to Elohim, begin to think he's forgotten about you or whatever? I declare, but I did not understand, matters too marvelous for me, which I did not know. Listen, please, and let me speak. I ask you, then would you make it known to me? I have heard of you by the hearing of the ear, but now my eye sees you. Therefore I despise myself and repent in dust and ashes. I had an intellectual knowledge of who you were, and I knew that I should trust in you, and I knew this, that, and the other. But now I understand, because these things have been brought to bear. Therefore he repented. And that's my advice for anyone who's in this situation, who has found themselves questioning Yehovah. Whatever it is, whatever reason he's doing it, maybe he's doing it to make his name great in the eyes of other people. Whatever it is, though, it doesn't matter. Even if it results in your death, stay true to him and know that you will find rest and life eternal. Something interesting for us to consider in all of this, in the fact that we do get ill. Okay, all of us get illnesses, and it's not all because of any of these reasons. Deuteronomy 28, the curses that come from disobedience to the Torah. It says, if you do not guard to do all the words of this Torah that are written in this book, to fear this esteemed and awesome name, YHVH your Elohim, then YHVH shall bring upon you and your descendants extraordinary plagues, great and lasting plagues, and grievous and lasting sicknesses. And he shall bring back on you all the diseases of Egypt, of which you were afraid, and they shall cling to you. So when he took them out of Egypt, he took away all of the diseases that afflicted them. They were under his protection, if you like, when they were in the land. This particular part of the curses is right at the end, when they've just disobeyed and disobeyed and disobeyed, and it's got worse and worse and worse. And right at the end, he says, this is what I'm going to do. Take away your protection from these things. The diseases of Egypt are going to afflict you again. Also, every sickness and every plague which is not written in the book of this Torah, YHVH does bring on you until you're destroyed. And you shall be left with few men, although you have become as numerous as the stars of the heavens, because you did not obey the voice of YHVH your Elohim. And it shall be that as YHVH rejoiced over you to do good and increase you, so YHVH does rejoice over you to destroy you and lay you waste. And you shall be plucked from off the land which you go to possess, and YHVH shall scatter you among all peoples from one end of the earth to the other. And there you shall serve other gods which neither you nor your fathers have known, wood and stone. So he says, I'm going to remove my protection of the diseases of Egypt, and then I'm going to scatter you across the world. Where are we now? We're scattered across the world. We've not been gathered back to the land. The diseases of Egypt do cling to us, and it's part of the curse. It's part of what we are to recognize in knowing that we've sinned and that YHVH is righteous in the things that he's doing. We're to look at our situation in the land that we dwell in, and we're to say, this is terrible. Among those nations you are to find no rest, nor have a resting place for the sole of your foot. But there YHVH shall give you a trembling heart, failing eyes, and sorrow of soul. And your life shall be hanging in suspense before you, and you shall fear day and night, and not be certain of your life. We would be certain of our lives if we were living in the land under his protection, millennial kingdom or whatever. But while we're scattered, we're not to be certain of our lives. The diseases of Egypt do cling to us. He is able to heal us. He is able. But it's up to him whether he does or not. And whether he does or not, we're certainly not to ever get to the point where we question him. Luke 17, 7-10 is the last scripture that I'll look at in regard to this. But we tend to think, don't we, we've been righteous. We should have our reward from the Master. We've done what's right. We should have our reward now. But who of you, having a servant ploughing or shepherding, would say to him when he's come in from the field, come immediately and sit down to eat? But would he not rather say to him, prepare somewhat for my supper, gird yourself and serve me while I eat and drink, and afterward you shall eat and drink. Serve me, and afterward you get your reward. Would he thank that servant because he did what he was commanded? I think not. So also you, when you've done all that you were commanded, say, we are unworthy servants. We have done what was our duty to do. We don't look and say, we've done everything that we're commanded, therefore we should have all these great things from YHVH. No, we continue to serve him. And afterward we will receive the reward. But, we know that he's compassionate, he's kind, he's merciful. I'm not saying that he's just absolutely not going to do anything for us, but it's not to be expected of him. In the third part, we'll get to the Torah portion, and we'll put all these things into place in the events that we see happening. Did you go on the presentation?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
No worries. I need my presentation. Okay, just got a text message off Jeff. He said, William, the guy who stamped the passport in the end, dated the stamp to the date of their arrival, the 12th. He told us we could not backdate the stamp because he would have had to have been there when we arrived. We went to him on Monday the 14th to get the stamp. When something told him to stamp us, he then confessed he was there on the 12th but was asleep. We went to Wexford, the local police station, on the 17th to see an officer, but no one was in, so they put our name down to call us on the 19th. I think I went through all that, actually. Anyway, everyone gets the point of the story, even if the details were not the exact dates or whatever, the exact order that it happened. So, the Torah portion starts in Exodus 6, goes through to the end of Exodus 9. As I say, it's a really, really short Torah portion. There's hardly anything in it, and we've covered the particulars of it, countless times before. So if we look for the stuff that we learned in the other parts happening in this to the people in the narrative, then we can learn from it what's actually happening in the background. It says, and Elohim spoke to Moshe and said to him, I am Yehovah. And I appeared to Abraham, to Yitzchak, and to Yaakov as El Shaddai, and by my name, Yehovah, I was not known to them. Okay, so Charlie went through this last week. I am Yehovah. Okay, I am. Now, he sent me a text after the teaching, so I'll go through the stuff that he mentioned in the text because he got one of the things just slightly wrong. Okay, so the name Yehovah means basically he who was, is, and is to be. I am is the first person present tense of the verb to be. If you're being, you're doing something, so it's a verb, you're being. In Hebrew, that verb is haya. It's the first person present tense. So first person I, second person you, third person he, she, it, or they. So the first person is what I am doing. The present tense is the present tense to speak of it being done in that present moment. So I am is the present tense of the verb to be. You understand? Yehovah, this is how it appears in about 10,000 manuscripts that have been discovered. No other spelling of the name has been discovered in any of those manuscripts. Whenever we get the name of a place that has Yehovah in it, these vowel pointings are there as well in even the Masoretic text, which isn't supposed to have any of the vowel pointings in. But this is the name as accurately as we can possibly know it. It is Yehovah. And the way that from this name we get he who was, is, and is coming, you take the Yod of Yihya, you take the Hov of Hoveh. Now Charlie had mentioned that it was the Ho of Hoveh, but he corrected himself in the text message and said it's the Hov of Hoveh, and it is the A of Hiyah, not the Av of Hiyah. Okay, so it's not Yehoav, it's Yehov A. See, in the vowel pointings, you've got the Yod, and then the Shva vowel, which means that you just skip to the next consonant. So it's Hov, that's the Hey, then the Vav with this, which is called a Cholam vowel above it, that's Hov. So you've got Yehov, and then you've got the A at the end, which is the A vowel, and then the H at the end. So Yehov A. So he says, I appeared to Abraham, to Yitzchak, and to Yaakov as El Shaddai, and by my name, Yehovah, I was not known to them. So when he appears to these people, the way that he manifests himself is as this powerful God who can do powerful things in their lives. But he hasn't shown himself to be outside of time to those people. Okay, all he showed is that he was able to protect them. He was able to do this, that, or the other. So he showed himself, and they knew him as El Shaddai. They knew that was his name, his character. But he'd not shown, as of yet, that he was outside of time. What we're going to see in this narrative is the first time that human beings involved in this narrative which is playing out are going to appreciate him as a God who is outside of time. And I also established my covenant with them to give them the land of Canaan, the land of their sojournings in which they've sojourned. And I have also heard the groaning of the children of Israel, whom the Mitzrites are enslaving, and I have remembered my covenant. So he said that he established his covenant, and that word means to make it fixed, make it kind of secure, put it on a secure foundation. He established it, and now he's remembered the covenant. This word established, okay, if we look at it in the Septuagint version, the Greek word established is used in an interesting place in the Greek New Testament. Do we then nullify the Torah through belief? Let it not be. On the contrary, we establish the Torah by our faith, by our belief. We don't nullify it. We don't do away with it. We establish it in the same way, exactly the same way that YHVH established his covenant in the first place. Say therefore to the children of Israel, okay, so he said, look, they didn't know me as YHVH, they just knew me as El Shaddai. Therefore, say to the children of Israel, I am YHVH. So he says, tell them now that I am YHVH, the one who is outside of time. And now listen to the language that he uses when he says, they didn't know me as YHVH. These people will know me. Therefore, tell them, I have brought you out from under the burdens of the Mitzrites, and have delivered you from their enslaving, and have redeemed you with an outstretched arm and with great judgments. He starts using this future perfect tense where he declares these things to have been done already. So he's saying, they didn't know me as the one outside of time. Therefore, go and tell the children of Israel that these things have already been done. And have taken you as my people, and I have been your Elohim, and you have known that I am YHVH, your Elohim, who is bringing you, okay, present tense here, out from under the burdens of the Mitzrites. And I have brought you into the land which I swore to give to Abraham, to Yitzchak, and to Yaakov. Have given it to you as an inheritance. I am YHVH. So he starts this diatribe here with, I am YHVH. Say to them, I am YHVH, the one who is outside of time. Then tell them that all these things have already been done. And he finishes it again with a reiteration of the fact, I am YHVH. And Moshe spoke thus to the children of Israel, but they did not listen to Moshe because of shortness of spirit and from hard slavery. We looked a couple of weeks ago at the idea of being short of spirit and not having control over your spirit. That's the exact same thing talked of here. And it says from hard slavery in the English, but in the Hebrew it says avodah, okay, which is service or labor or work. It's just work, it's just things that you do, but it was hard. Verse 10 says, and YHVH spoke to Moshe, saying, go in, speak to Pharaoh, king of Mitzrayim, to let the children of Israel go out of his land. And Moshe spoke before YHVH, saying, the children of Israel have not listened to me. And why would Pharaoh listen to me? For I am of uncircumcised lips. And I thought, well, that's a strange thing, isn't it, to be of uncircumcised lips? Does it mean lips that aren't submitted to God? Surely Moshe's were. I don't understand what he means here. So I looked at the Greek in the Septuagint. Septuagint, okay, this phrase is used twice in the Hebrew, uncircumcised lips. But in the Septuagint, two different phrases are used in the place, and they tell us a lot more. Septuagint, it says, how shall listen to me Pharaoh, for I am not reckoned. In other words, I'm a nobody. How's Pharaoh going to listen to me? I'm a nobody. I'm not reckoned. And YHVH spoke to Moshe and to Aharon and gave them a command for the children of Israel and for Pharaoh, king of Mitzrayim, to bring the children of Israel out of the land of Mitzrayim. These are the heads of their fathers' houses, the sons of Reuven, the firstborn of Israel, Chanoch and Palu, Chetron and Carmi. These are the clans of Reuven. And it goes through all of the families that were in Egypt at that time. I'm not going to go through them. If I do the Torah portion again in the future, I'll go through and point out the significant things that it tells us. But we'll skip on to verse 26. It says, this is Aharon and Moshe, to whom YHVH said, bring out the children of Israel from the land of Mitzrayim, according to their divisions, according to their sevaot, according to their hosts or armies. They were the ones who spoke to Pharaoh, king of Mitzrayim, to bring out the children of Israel from Mitzrayim. This is Moshe and Aharon. And it came to be on the day when YHVH spoke to Moshe in the land of Mitzrayim, that YHVH spoke to Moshe saying, I am YHVH. Speak to Pharaoh, king of Mitzrayim, all that I say to you. So I'm the one that's outside of time. And this is what we're going to see him establishing in the eyes of Moshe, different to Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and also in the eyes of Pharaoh, that he is the one outside of time. And Moshe said before YHVH, see, I am of uncircumcised lips. Why would Pharaoh listen to me? So first of all, he says, look, I'm a nobody. Why is Pharaoh going to listen to me? Now he says something different. Moses said before the Lord, behold, I am weak-voiced, and how shall listen to me Pharaoh? Very much like when Paul says, but even if I am unskilled in word. And we see this as kind of a theme, that you can be unskilled in word. You cannot be a good speaker, but YHVH will put words in your mouth to speak. Luke 21:14-15 says, therefore resolve in your hearts not to premeditate on what to answer. When you brought in front of rulers and important people, resolve not in your hearts not to premeditate on what to answer. For I shall give you a mouth and wisdom, which all your adversaries shall not be able to refute or resist. And we can remember these things. Again, we had the example before of people going in front of their bosses and saying, I can't work on the Sabbath. I've got to have Sukkot off so that I can go on a camping trip, or whatever it is. Don't premeditate on what to say. Just resolve in your heart to go in and speak the truth to them. Because you know what to say to them already. You just tell them what the situation is. YHVH says he'll give you a mouth and wisdom which your adversaries shall not be able to refute or resist. So YHVH said to Moshe, see, I have made you an Elohim to Pharaoh, and Aharon, your brother, is your prophet. So to Pharaoh's mind, Moshe is as an Elohim, and Aaron is as his prophet. You shall speak all that I command you, and Aharon, your brother, shall speak to Pharaoh. What we see later is that Moses is speaking to the people, but he says, okay, in this situation, don't worry about it. You're not up to speaking to him. Go before him. I'll make you as a god in his eyes, okay, with all this great power. And Aharon will be as your prophet. But I'm going to harden the heart of Pharaoh and shall increase my signs and my wonders in the land of Mitzrayim. Okay, so Pharaoh's heart, he is going to harden, or he's going to strengthen, as we've looked at before. Pharaoh, as we'll see throughout the narrative that we're going to look at, hardens his own heart. Things that Pharaoh sees causes him to harden his heart, because he doesn't want to let these people go. Okay, you can imagine your entire force of slave labor by which all of the labor in your country is done. Letting all of them go? That would seem ridiculous, wouldn't it? And Pharaoh's not going to listen to you, and I shall lay my hand on Mitzrayim and bring my divisions and my people, the children of Israel, out of the land of Mitzrayim by great judgments. So he's told, go to Pharaoh, tell him this, but he's not going to listen to you. He's not going to listen to you because I'm going to harden his heart. Moses must be like, okay, good plan, let's go. Very similar to Ezekiel. He said to me, son of man, go to the house of Israel, and you shall speak to them with my words. For you are not sent to a people of foreign speech and of difficult language, but to the house of Israel. Not to many people of foreign speech and of difficult language, whose words you do not understand. If I had rather sent you to them, they would have listened to you. For the house of Israel is going to refuse to listen to you. You've got to go anyway. For they refuse to listen to me. For the house of Israel are hard of head and hard of heart. And what we're going to see in Pharaoh is a picture of us and the way that we can respond when YHVH brings word to us. We can either do it or we can harden our hearts. And if we harden our hearts, he will strengthen us in our hardness. Sometimes we look at people and we think, how don't they get it? How are they just not doing that? But it's because they're resistant to YHVH. They don't listen to YHVH. The fact that his word has said it. YHVH strengthens them in that because he wants no part of them. He doesn't want them to turn to him and be healed. See, I shall make your face as hard as their faces, and your forehead as hard as their foreheads. Like adamant stone, harder than flint, I shall make your forehead. Do not be afraid of them. Do not be discouraged by their looks, for they are a rebellious house. And he said to me, Son of man, receive into your heart all my words that I speak to you, and hear with your ears. And go, come to the exiles of the children of your people, and speak to them, and say to them, Thus said the Master Yehovah, whether they hear or whether they refuse. So, why would Yehovah send Ezekiel and send Moses to people that he has previously told them they're not going to listen to you? Well, it's quite simply because Yehovah's purpose in going and telling those people was never to get them to listen to them. And when I joke and say that Moses would have been like, okay, good plan, I'm sure that Moses had faith in what Yehovah was telling him and was just like, I'll go and do that. Isaiah 55, 10-11 says, For as the rain comes down and the snow from the heavens and do not return there, but water the earth and make it bring forth bud and give seed to the sower and bread to the eater, so is my word that goes forth from my mouth. It does not return to me empty, but shall do what I please and shall certainly accomplish what I send it for. So when he sends them, it wasn't to make them listen, but it was to achieve something. And in both of these cases, it did achieve what Yehovah sent it to achieve. In the case of Ezekiel, in Zechariah 7, 8-14, we see the result of it. It says, And the word of Yehovah came to Zechariah, saying, Thus said Yehovah Sebaot, execute true mishpat, show kindness and compassion, everyone to his brother. Do not oppress the widow or the fatherless, the stranger or the poor, and do not plot evil in your hearts against one another. But they refused to listen, and they shrugged their shoulders and stopped their ears from hearing. And they made their hearts like flint against hearing the Torah, and the words which Yehovah had sent by his Spirit through the former prophets. Therefore, great wrath came from Yehovah Sebaot. So this is his purpose. He sends forth his word. They didn't listen. He knew they weren't going to listen. He wasn't doing it for no reason. It came to be, as he called and they did not hear, so let them call, but I shall not hear, says Yehovah Sebaot. And I scattered them with a storm wind among all the Gentiles, which they had not known. And the land was laid waste behind them, no one passing through or returning, for they made the pleasant land a waste. So his purpose in it, he knew that they were going to be disobedient. He knew all of the times that he was going to deliver them, then they were going to be disobedient and fall away from it. And he knows the people are going to be like that now. But his word doesn't return void. His word's still done its purpose. Now he scatters them amongst the Gentiles. In Romans 11, 1-7, it says, I say then, has Elohim rejected his people? Let it not be. For I also am a Yisraelite of the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin. Elohim has not rejected his people whom he knew beforehand. No, he's not done that. He's known certain people beforehand, and he scattered those people in amongst the Gentiles to bring salvation to the Gentiles. So he knew they were going to be disobedient, but he used it for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose, for our good, so that we would be in this position right now. Yehovah, they've killed your prophets and overthrown your altars, and I alone am left, and they see my life. Again, we might lose our lives for Yehovah's purpose, but we'll just go and be at peace. We'll just go and be at rest with him. But what does the answer of Elohim say to him? I have left for myself 7,000 men who have not bowed the knee to Baal. So therefore also at this present time a remnant according to the choice of favor has come to be. And if by favor it is no longer of works, otherwise favor is no longer favor. And if it's of works, it's no longer favor, otherwise work is no longer work. So we're only here by the favor shown to us by Elohim. What then? Yisrael has not obtained what it seeks, but the chosen did obtain it. And the rest were hardened, just like Pharaoh. So he's got his purpose in it. Verse 5 says, and this is further his purpose, the Mitzrites, the Egyptians, shall know that I am Yehovah when I stretch out my hand on Mitzrayim, and I shall bring the children of Israel out from among them. So again, all things work for the good of those who love him and according to his purpose. Brings the children of Israel out. It's also for the glory of his name. The Mitzrites shall know that I am Yehovah. And Moshe and Aharon did as Yehovah commanded them, so they did. Now Moshe was 80 years old and Aharon 83 years old when they spoke to Pharaoh. And Yehovah spoke to Moshe and to Aharon, saying, when Pharaoh speaks to you, saying, show a miracle for yourselves, then you shall say to Aharon, take your rod, throw it before Pharaoh, and let it become a serpent. So Moshe and Aharon went in to Pharaoh, and they did so as Yehovah commanded. And Aharon threw his rod before Pharaoh and before his servants, and it became a serpent. So more accurately, when it says, I have made you an Elohim before Pharaoh and Aharon, your prophet, rather than I represented it inaccurately, it's not that he's made him like a god, because obviously he's representing Yehovah. But he's instructing Aharon what to do. He's made him mighty, and as we saw before, he made him mighty in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of the people. He's instructing Aharon what to do, and he's doing it. But Pharaoh also called the wise men and the practices of witchcraft, and the magicians of Mitzrayim also did so with their magic. And a couple of years ago, I can't remember when it was, but Charlie looked at this from the perspective of it being scientists in the world. Was it a couple of years ago, or was it last year? Oh, people look back at the thumbnails, you'll see a scientist on a pedestal and all the people around looking up to him, which is certainly true. You know, when things come upon the world and the supernatural, science certainly tries to explain it. But another way that the word of Elohim is made manifest in the future, I believe, will be in a very real parallel with this, with the occultists and the black magicians in the world doing so to the positions of power which have been established, and think that they're all in with those sort of things. I think that'll be, and I'll show you a reason for that later. And they each one threw his rod, and they became serpents, but the rod of Aharon swallowed up their rods. And Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and he did not listen to them as Yehovah had said. So he sees them doing the same thing, and that's what hardens his heart. First of all, maybe he feared, oh, this is quite a powerful God, I don't want to go against this God. And then the magician's like, don't worry about it, we can do this. And Yehovah said to Moshe, the heart of Pharaoh is hard. He refuses to let the people go. Go to Pharaoh in the morning as he goes out to water, and you shall stand by the river's bank to meet him, and take in your hand the rod which was turned into a serpent. And you shall say to him, Yehovah, the Elohim of the Hebrews, has sent me to you, saying, let my people go, so that they serve me in the wilderness. But see, until now, you have not listened. I think this is interesting that he tells him to take the staff that was a serpent. Doesn't tell him why, he just tells him to do this fairly obscure thing. And we don't know sometimes why the things that Yehovah tells us to do are important for us to do them. All we know that if we do them exactly, then his will be done in the end. And we don't know what effect this had on Pharaoh. You know, maybe if they hadn't brought the staff, it wouldn't have had the effect of, there's that staff that turned into a serpent and then ate up all the other serpents of the magicians. We don't know, but he tells them to do seemingly obscure thing, and they do it. Thus said Yehovah, by this you know that I am Yehovah. By this you know I am Yehovah. I am the one outside of time. See, I am striking the waters which are in the river with the rod that's in my hand, and they have been turned into blood. By this you know that I am Yehovah. And the fish in the river die, and the river has stank, and the Mitzrites have found it impossible to drink the water of the river. And Yehovah spoke to Moshe, say to Aharon, take your rod and stretch out your hand over the waters of Mitzrayim, over their streams, over the rivers, over their ponds, and over all the pools of water, that they become blood. And there has been blood in the land of Mitzrayim, both in wooden and in stone containers. Remember, he's showing to Moshe and Aharon as well that he is Yehovah. He's outside of time, so he's telling them what's going to happen as well. And Moshe and Aharon did so as Yehovah commanded, and he lifted up the rod and struck the waters that were in the river in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of his servants. And all the waters that were in the river were turned to blood. And the fish that were in the river died, and the river stank, and the Mitzrites were unable to drink the water of the river, and blood was in all the land of Mitzrayim. And the magicians of Mitzrayim did the same with their magic, and the heart of Pharaoh was hardened, and he did not listen to them, as Yehovah had said. Yehovah said, this is going to happen. And then it happened exactly as he said. Again, he's proving to them that he is Yehovah. And Pharaoh turned and went into his house, and his heart was not moved by this either. And all the Mitzrites dug around the river for water to drink, and they were unable to drink the water of the river. And 7 days were completed after YHVH had struck the river. And YHVH spoke to Moshe, "Go to Pharaoh and say to him, 'Thus said YHVH, let my people go, so that they serve me. But if you refuse to let them go, see, I am smiting all your border with frogs. And the river has swarmed with frogs, which have gone up and have come into your house, and into your bedroom, and on your bed, and into the houses of your servants, and on your people, into your ovens, and into your kneading bowls. And the frogs have come up on you, on your people, and on all your servants.' And YHVH said to Moshe, 'Say to Aaron, stretch out your hand with your rod over the streams, over the rivers, over the ponds, and cause the frogs to come up on the land of Mitzrayim.' So Aaron stretched out his hand over the waters of Mitzrayim, and the frogs came up and covered the land of Mitzrayim. And the magicians did so with their magic, and brought up frogs on the land of Mitzrayim." Okay, now this is where I think that we get a little bit of a picture that this is as well occultists in the end times doing works to those who are in power. Revelation 16:13-14 says, "And I saw coming out of the mouth of the dragon, and out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet, 3 unclean spirits as frogs." So we see these plagues in the end time, and it's not an exact picture of these plagues in the end time. All it is the word of Elohim being repeated in cycles, okay? The same thing happening over and over and over again. So these 3 unclean spirits are bizarrely compared to frogs. "For they are the spirits of demons doing signs, which go out to the kings of the entire world to gather them to the great day of YHVH the Almighty." So again, we've got the magicians, or the false prophet at least, bringing forth this unclean spirit, the spirit of demons, which go out to the kings of the entire world and deceive them. Pharaoh then called for Moshe and Aaron and said, "Pray to YHVH," the word Tathar, which we looked at, which means to entreat him, "to take away the frogs from me and from my people. And I send the people to go to sacrifice to YHVH." And Moshe said to Pharaoh, "Explain yourself to me. When am I to Athar for you? When am I to entreat for you, and for your servants, and for your people, to destroy the frogs from you and your houses, and remain only in the river?" And he said, "Tomorrow." And he said, "Let it be according to your word, so that you know there is no one like YHVH. There's no one like he who is outside of time, or Elohim. When do you want me to do it? I want you to do it tomorrow." Okay, when you see it done, at that time, you will know that he is YHVH and there's no one like him. "And the frogs have turned aside from you, and from your houses, and from your servants, and from your people. They remain in the river only." And Moshe and Aaron went out from Pharaoh, and Moshe cried out, Sa'ak, to YHVH. We looked at that also, concerning the frogs which he had brought against Pharaoh. And YHVH did according to the word of Moshe, and the frogs died out of the houses, out of the courtyards, and out of the fields. And they gathered them together in heaps, and the land stank. And when Pharaoh saw that there was relief, he hardened his heart, and did not listen to them, as YHVH had said. Again, he told them. To them, they're going and doing these amazing works before Pharaoh. Surely they must have thought, Pharaoh's probably going to see these things and not be hardened in his heart. But just as YHVH said, Pharaoh was hardened in his heart. And YHVH said to Moshe, "Say to Aaron, stretch out your rod and strike the dust of the land, so that it becomes gnats in all the land of Mitzrayim." And they did so, and Aaron stretched out his hand with his rod, struck the dust of the earth, and it became gnats on man and beast, and all the dust of the land became gnats in the land of Mitzrayim. And the magicians did similarly with their magic to bring forth gnats, but they were unable, and there were gnats on man and beast. The magicians then said to Pharaoh, "This is the finger of Elohim." But the heart of Pharaoh was hardened, and he did not listen to them, as YHVH had said. Verse 20 says, and Yehovah said to Moshe, rise early in the morning and stand before Pharaoh as he comes out the water, and say to him, thus said Yehovah, let my people go so that they serve me. Or else if you do not let my people go, see, I'm sending swarms of flies on you and on your servants and on your people and into your houses. And the houses of the Mitzrites have been filled with swarms of flies, and also on the ground which they stand. In the Septuagint it says dog flies. If anyone's familiar with what a dog fly is, that's what it says. Don't know whether that's accurate. It could just be the way that they've translated flies. And in that day I have separated the land of Goshen. Okay, I have separated the land of Goshen. It's done. In which my people dwell, that no swarm of flies is there, so that you know that I am Yehovah in the midst of the land even. I'm him who is outside of time. And I have put a distinction between my people and your people. Again, tomorrow is this sign. And Yehovah did so, and thick swarms of flies came into the house of Pharaoh and into his servants' houses and into all the land of Mitzrayim. And the land was ruined because of the swarms of flies. Pharaoh then called for Moshe and Aaron and said, go sacrifice to your Elohim in the land. And he's talking about in the land of Egypt. You can go do it in the land of Egypt. Moshe said, it's not right for us to do so, for we would be sacrificing the abomination of the Mitzrites to Yehovah or Elohim. See, if we sacrifice the abomination of the Mitzrites before their eyes, would they not stone us? So it's important at this point that we recognize that there's this word of. What is the abomination of the Mitzrites? 1 Kings, which we looked at before, it said Shlomo went after Ashtoreth, the god of the Sidonians, and after Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites. Thus Shlomo did evil in the eyes of Yehovah and did not follow Yehovah completely like his father David. Then Shlomo built a high place for Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, on the hill that is east of Jerusalem, and for Moloch, the abomination of the children of Ammon. So, the abomination of these people is their God. The reason that they couldn't sacrifice to him is that they would have been sacrificing lambs and sheep, and they were what the Egyptians upheld as gods. That's the abomination of the Mitzrites, which is quite a thing for him to say to Pharaoh himself. It's like, oh no, we don't want to go and be sacrificing your abominations. That wouldn't work, would it? Different. This word abomination is the word that we see in Leviticus, where it says that, you know, eating unclean food is an abomination. It's also used in a verse that we looked at the other week. It says, and you shall say, your servants have been men of livestock from our youth, even till now, both we and also our fathers, so that you dwell in the land of Goshen. For every shepherd is an abomination to the Mitzrites. Different. Being an abomination to someone is different to the abomination of that people group. Every shepherd is an abomination to the Mitzrites. As Charlie looked at, being a shepherd is an idiom for someone who walks in righteousness. We know obviously the Egyptians are a picture of people in the world, and we see this idea in Proverbs 29:27. It says, an unrighteous man is an abomination to the righteous. Same word, it's toavah. And he who is straight in the way is an abomination to the wrong. So he who is straight in the way, the shepherd, is an abomination to the wrong, to the Egyptians, to the people of the world. Let us go 3 days' journey into the wilderness. Then we shall sacrifice to Yehovah our Elohim as he commands us. Now, I don't know here whether they're saying that Yehovah commands animal sacrifice before the Torah was given, because we see, we see Abel giving an acceptable sacrifice. We see all the patriarchs giving sacrifices. We see Moses giving sacrifices before the Torah is given about the animal sacrifice. So I don't know if he means as he commands us just generally, or whether he means he's told them at this time that they must go and sacrifice to him. It's not clear. And Pharaoh said, I am letting you go, then you shall sacrifice to Yehovah your Elohim in the wilderness. Only do not go very far away. Pray, entreat for me. And Moshe said, see, when I leave, I shall entreat to Yehovah, and tomorrow the swarms of flies have departed from Pharaoh and his servants and from his people. But do not let Pharaoh again deceive, not to let the people go to sacrifice to Yehovah. And Moshe went out from Pharaoh and entreated Yehovah. And Yehovah did according to the word of Moshe and removed the swarms of flies from Pharaoh, from his servants, and from his people. Not one remained. But Pharaoh hardened his heart at this time too, and did not let the people go. Yehovah said to Moshe, go into Pharaoh and speak to him. Thus said Yehovah, Elohim of the Hebrews, let my people go so that they serve me. And if you refuse to let them go and still hold them, see, the hand of Yehovah is on your livestock in the field, on the horses, on the donkeys, on the camels, on the cattle, and on the sheep, a very grievous pestilence. Someone sent me a question the other day saying, if at this point he kills all of the horses, what is it that is pulling Pharaoh's chariots when they all leave? Good question. However, we see in 1 Kings, when Solomon gets horses from Egypt, he keeps them in stables, and these are horses to pull his chariots. So the horses pulling the chariots, the horses of the army, are not the livestock that are in the field. They would have been stabled, and they would have been trained and looked after in a very particular way to be horses of battle. Yehovah has separated between the livestock of Israel and the livestock of Mitzrayim, and let no matter die of all that belongs to the children of Israel. And Yehovah set an appointed time, saying, tomorrow Yehovah does this word. Tomorrow, it's going to be tomorrow. You're going to see, he's already done this. When has he done it? He's done it tomorrow. Here's Yehovah. And Yehovah did this word on the next day, and all the livestock of Mitzrayim died, but the livestock of the children of Israel, no one died. Not one died. Then Pharaoh sent, and see, not even one of the livestock of the Israelites was dead. The heart of Pharaoh was hardened. He did not let the people go. So he says, tomorrow I'm going to do it. I'm going to kill your livestock, and I'm not going to kill theirs. It's going to be tomorrow. You're going to see. Go and see if that's happened. It has happened. But still, he hardens his heart. And Yehovah said to Moshe and Aharon, fill your hands with ashes from a furnace, and let Moshe scatter it toward the heavens before the eyes of Pharaoh. And it shall become fine dust in all the land of Mitzrayim, and it shall cause boils that break out in sores on man and beast in all the land of Mitzrayim. So they took ashes from the furnace and stood before Pharaoh, and Moshe scattered them towards the heavens, and they caused boils breaking out in sores on man and beast. So I want you to take note, these are causing sores on these people. Then it says the magicians were unable to stand before Moshe because of the boils, for the boils were on the magicians and on all the Mitzrites. Okay, so bear in mind, they've got sores, and this is happening to the magicians. So if in the future this happens to the occultists who are around the rulers of the earth, we should see something like that. But Yehovah hardened the heart of Pharaoh. He didn't listen to them, as Yehovah had said. So they've got these sores. Okay, in the future picture, what we'd expect to see is the occultists having these sores as well, but them not repenting. Revelation 16, 10 to 11, it says, the fifth messenger poured out his bowl on the throne of the beast and his kingdom, the beast's kingdom, which would include the occultists. And I'll show you that it's talking about people when it's talking about his kingdom, because it says his kingdom became darkened and they gnawed on their tongues from pain. His kingdom is a they, it is people. And they blasphemed the Elohim of the heaven for their pains and their sores. So even the occultists are having the sores on them, and they did not repent of their works. Exactly what we see happening here. And Yehovah said to Moshe, rise early in the morning and stand before Pharaoh and say to him, thus said Yehovah Elohim of the Hebrews, let my people go so that they serve me. For at this time, I'm sending all my plagues into your heart and on your servants and on your people, so that you know that there is no one like me in all the earth. For now I have stretched my hand and struck you and your people with a pestilence, and you are cut off from the earth. It's done. You will know there's no one like Yehovah. There's no one outside of time. At this time, I'm going to do it. For this reason, I have raised you up, in order to show you my power and in order to declare my name in all the earth. So again, it's all matters being done for the good of those who love him and called according to his purpose, and also in order to declare his name and glorify his name. Proverbs 21 verse 1, the king's heart is as channels of water in the hand of YHVH. He inclines it wherever he wishes. And what he wished to do to Pharaoh's heart at this time was not to incline it to let them go and give them favor in his sight, but it was to harden it. And he does all things for his purpose. In Romans 9:14-23 it says, what then shall we say? Is there unrighteousness with Elohim? Let it not be. For he says to Moshe, I will do kindness to who I will do kindness, and I shall have compassion on whomever I have compassion. So then it is not of him who is wishing, nor of him who is running, but of Elohim who shows favor. For the scripture says to Pharaoh, for this purpose I have raised you up, to show my power in you and that my name be declared in all the earth. So then he favors whom he wishes, and he hardens whom he wishes. Then you shall say to me, why does he still find fault? For who has resisted his counsel? But who are you, O man, to talk back to Elohim? Shall that which is formed say to him who formed it, why have you made me like this? Does not the potter have authority over the clay from the same lump to make one vessel for value and another not for value? And if Elohim, desiring to show his wrath and to make his power known, with much patience tolerated the vessels of wrath prepared for his destruction, and that he might make known the riches of his esteem on vessels of kindness which he prepared beforehand for his esteem, so has he not got the right to show his power, to magnify his name, and to show kindness to those people who of their own free will chose him, while at the same time accepting that people have free will and they will choose evil? He brought that about knowing that they would choose evil. Does he not have the right to do that if he desires to show his justice and his mercy? Verse 17 says, you still exalt yourself against my people in that you do not let them go. See, tomorrow about this time I am causing very heavy rain hail to rain down, such as has not been in Mitzrayim from the day of its founding until now. And now bring your livestock to safety and all that you have in the field, for the hail has come down on every man and every beast which is found in the field and is not brought home, and they have died. So tomorrow about this time I'm going to do this. Those among the servants of Pharaoh who feared the word of YHVH made their servants and livestock flee to the houses. But those who did not set their heart on the word of YHVH left their servants and livestock in the field. Then YHVH said to Moshe, stretch out your hand toward the heavens, and let there be hail in all the land of Mitzrayim, on man and on beast, and on every plant of the field throughout the land of Mitzrayim. Then Moshe stretched his rod towards the heavens, and YHVH sent thunder and hail, and fire came down to the earth, and YHVH rained hail on the land of Mitzrayim. Thus there came to be hail and fire flashing continually in the midst of the hail, very heavy, such as had not been in all the land of Mitzrayim since it became a nation. And the hail smote in all the land of Mitzrayim, all that was in the field, both man and beast, and hail smote every plant of the field and broke every tree of the field. Only in the land of Goshen, where the children of Yisrael were, there was no hail. And of course, those people who had feared the word of YHVH and had taken precautions according to it, they were okay as well. And I imagine that they would have largely constituted the mixed multitude of Egyptians who came up, those who feared the word of YHVH, those among the Mitzrites who were to see these great things and know the name of YHVH. So we see, some people are going to fear the word of YHVH, some people aren't. The ones who do, they're going to be fine. The ones who don't, they're going to suffer with the rest of the world. And perhaps also we see in the future when the plagues come on the world, there will be people who at this point go, actually, I think we should really be submitting to YHVH, since it is he that's bringing all of these things. And then there will be the people who just go, nah, it's okay. It doesn't matter. We'll continue on. We'll be hardened in heart. Pharaoh then sent and called for Moshe and for Aaron and said to them, I have sinned this time. YHVH is righteous and my people and I are wrong. Entreat YHVH, for there has been enough of the thunder and hail of Elohim, and I am letting you go so that you stay no longer. And Moshe said to him, am I going out of the city? I spread my hands to YHVH. Let the thunder cease and the hail be no more, so that you know that the earth belongs to YHVH. So, am I going out of the city? That's when I'm going to do it. You'll know when I do that, it's going to stop. But as for you and your servants, I know that you do not yet fear before YHVH Elohim. And that word must have come back to haunt them afterwards. Oh yeah, we do not yet fear Elohim. Well, we'll see. Afterwards, when all the firstborn are dead and they're all leaving, perhaps they will have thought, Verse 31 says, and the flax and barley were smitten, for the barley was in the head and the flax was in the bud. And I see no other reason for it to tell us that other than this is happening in the month of Aviv. But the wheat and the spelt were not smitten, for they were late crops. Okay, the wheat and the spelt come about around the time of Shavuot. That's when the first fruits of the wheat and the spelt are offered. And Moshe went out of the city from Pharaoh and spread his hands out to YHVH, and the thunder and hail ceased, and the rain was not poured on the earth. So at my going out of the city, I'll do this. I'll raise my hands, I'll pray. It's going to stop. Goes out of the city, exactly then it stops. Pharaoh saw that the rain and the hail and the thunder had ceased, and he had sinned again and hardened his heart, he and his servants. And the heart of Pharaoh was hardened, and he did not let the children of Israel go, as YHVH had said through Moshe. So we see all these plagues being brought, and we're going to see this again in the end time, because it's just a cycle that repeats all the way through Scripture. So I'll show you the end time, and then I'll show you how this is done in the children of Israel, and then we'll come to an end. Revelation 9:20-21 says, and the rest of mankind who were not killed by these plagues did not repent of the work of their hands, that they should not worship the demons and idols of gold and of silver and of brass and of stone and of wood, which are neither able to see nor hear nor to walk. And they did not repent of their murders, nor of their sorceries, nor of their whorings, nor of their thefts. Okay, so when things get really bad, you're going to have the people not repenting. But it's not just the people in the world, the people of Egypt who do this. I'll finish on this verse. Jeremiah 8:4-6 says, and you shall say to them, thus said YHVH, would they fall and not rise? Does one turn away and not return? Why then has this people, Yerushalayim, turned away in a continual backsliding? They cling to deceit. They refuse to turn back. That's what they do. They cling to their deceit. How true is that of people that you have known? Okay, you tell them what the truth is, but they cling to the lie. They want the lie. They have not received the love of the truth, that they might be saved. I have listened and heard. They do not speak right. No man has repented of his evil, saying, what have I done? They all turn to their own course, like a horse rushing into battle. And as the other proverbs tell us, okay, they rush to their own destruction, to their own doom, and they love it. Like they're frothing at the mouth to run to their own death. It's sad. Should we pray? Father, I thank you for all the precious gifts that you've given us. I thank you for your mercy and your compassion, and that you're so kind to us in our lives, and you help us and you chastise us and you show us where it is you want us to go. And you've given us your word and your Sabbath so that we can rejoice in who you are, and so that we can see the things in ourselves that aren't right. I thank you for everything that you've done for us, Father. It's amazing that you've called us out of the midst of Egypt. You've set us apart, Father. I just pray that we walk worthy of that calling. Help us, Father, to do this. Remember that we are but dust. Thank you for your chastisement, Father. Thank you that we can come together in this place and talk about you and see more of who you are from the things that you do in all of our lives. Thank you for what you did with the dudeks. And all the time that they've been gone, thank you that we can see that your hand was right there guiding them in every second, every moment. And thank you for the encouragement that this is. I pray, Father, for all the people who are sick out there. I pray that this brings them to repentance if they're in a bad place and they're questioning you. I pray that you'd do to them as you did to Job, and you'd restore them. I pray that you'd let your people know that their Father, and that you care about them and that you're close to them. I thank you that you've shown us this. Thank you, Father. Amen.